Just one big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Reason Reborn. We're doing a 2-episode thing this week. This is episode 31. I don't know, we're in the 30s. I'm tired. It's been a long week, and I'm so glad it's a Memorial Day weekend at the time of this recording. I'm actually off this whole weekend, even though my family's gonna fuck with me. I'm gonna find as much time to rest as I can because I need it. After the bullshit of the last 2 days between work, school, all that, I'm drained. How are you, sir? By the way, this is the most patriotic person on the planet, Cardiacsumo. Say hi to the people.
I mean, I feel like you were saying that sarcastically, but I'm going to argue I am, and we can bring that up later. Feeling patriotic. That's how the fuck I'm doing.
I didn't say it was sarcasm. I actually think you are patriotic, at least in the sense of the word. Maybe not in the sense of people's opinion.
It is 31, by the way.
It's 31. Oh, yay!
It's not 31, but it's 31.
I guess. I mean, whatever. We'll take it.
And it is a off-schedule show. So I guess you could argue it doesn't really count in the number system anyway.
No, it does. We count it.
The one shot?
Nope, it's not one shot. It counts.
All right.
In a row. It's in sequence. Leave it alone.
It's not one of those.
What is Alexa doing? Oh, she's telling me something. You know, I've muted Alexa. She can't hear me. Hi, Alexa. You can't hear shit, can you? Probably can, since apparently Alexa's recording people.
I like how you're talking to her.
You ain't shit, Alexa. I know. Talking shit to a goddamn device. Shows you how sad and lonely my life is. Oh well. Anyway.
I mean, I think the point I was making was that it shows how far technology is going. But sure, however you choose to interpret that.
Yeah, I mean, hey. Could be the vodka talking because I had to have a drink when I got home because I was so fucking sad that what happens at my job happens to the point where I gotta sometimes wind down. But we'll talk about that later, like we talked about yesterday. That shit was funny. If I tell you what happened at work, you'll be like, "What the fuck?" Anyway, probably just out. So it's fine. Anyway,
you know what I think, man? I think that people are forgetting what your face looks like. I'm just saying.
Well, I would love to show my face, except for behind my face is a monstrosity. I should just change my picture.
I mean,
so to have my face to remember. It's fine. Y'all see me enough on Twitter.
I figured you had like a green screen that you would just like project yourself out into like a mountain range or something.
Yeah, I need to put my green screen back up, but I actually want to replace my green screen. I've been thinking about that, finding a smaller, more compact, easier to put up green screen. Because my green screen is like basically the photo green screen, which means I had to put up the stand first, and it's like the big stand with the 2 poles and crossbow.
I'm a little curious how to set that up. Actually, that would be cool to like just project something crazy. While
I found the like collapsible ones that they have, not the Elgato one where it's $150 to get a collapsible stand. Like that's too much, but I found one that's around $50-$60 on Amazon. I have to send you the link if you're curious. I
might like set myself up in like a far more intelligent looking space with like books and candles, you know.
Yeah. No, the green screen I saw is kind of like the Eurostrix, where it's like it's big enough, but it's not too big, which is what I like about it. It's like it's easily maneuverable, I should say. Like I don't have to keep it. Like I feel compelled with the one I have now to keep it up all the time because it's less of a hassle that way. But I feel like if I had the smaller version, it would I wouldn't mind. It wouldn't be such a chore. It's just like the lamps. I'm thinking about getting rid of my lamps too. Seeing if I can find a different version or a different solution, I should say, to it. So yes, if you're wondering why you haven't seen my face lately, it's one because my house looks like garbage from all the spring cleaning, as I've been throwing away stuff. As some of you have seen, I've been throwing away and finding stuff like the Obama papers that I found. Like, where the hell did those come from?
The Obama papers. It makes it sound like you just like found some shit that used to be in the White House and just fell into your lap.
It was him, and he was glorious. But now we have something a lot more
energetic.
That's one way of putting it.
I mean, you get to me that dude doesn't have energy. He's like tweeting all hours of the night. He talks like he doesn't know about punctuation.
His fingers have energy. His body is another thing. He can't even get up to go see his wife when she's in surgery. He has to go afterwards. I feel like he's waiting for her to die, by the way.
Yo, wow. Okay.
I'm going there because it's like, why aren't you in the hospital with her while she's going through this thing?
He's busy being the
I understand you're a president, but you're not a good president, so why would you need to be there?
I mean, real talk, it's not like he's doing a lot of work.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like if it was Obama, I was like, he's probably got 1,000 meetings. And Micheal, being who Micheal is, probably would have been like, yo, I can't have you sitting up under me while there's a lot to do. You need to take care of what you need, and I'll be okay. We'll figure this shit out. Whereas I feel like Melania is probably like, please don't come.
And he's like, he wasn't planning to.
Right.
Marriage.
Exactly. Or whatever facsimile it is.
I mean, so instead of just shit talking their marriage, I guess we can shit talk what they're actually doing, so we can like hop into.
I mean, yeah, because we're talking about Trump this episode, so it's poignant that we shit talk his personal life on top of his fucking marital status. So Trump's been busy again, as usual, making a fool of himself this week. And I just wanted to do a review of him and his actions as it relates to this week and whatever else we feel has stood out. And what is coming up to the midpoint in a few months of his presidency. We've been like a year and a half almost through this fiasco. And quote unquote reflecting back on it, what have you seen that has stood out in a positive way first? Let's get rid of the easy part first. Since he's been in office.
Positive?
Yeah, this is the easy part. This is like the 10-minute segment of the show.
I guess you could just say increased social engagement as a response. Response isn't the word I'm looking for. But, I guess I want to say something like backlash to it. Just as a response in general to his presence, increased social engagement. You see more women running for office and winning, I suppose. So that's interesting. You see more young people engaged. You see a lot of just social activity. I don't think all of it is good social activity. I think there's more. Some of it is good. That was a hard question. You got me staggered from the beginning. I was expecting like a quick warm up, a few warm up punches, and you just came in with like a haymaker from the start.
I mean, it's important to like note this because it's in the interest of being fair. By the way, that's my printer going off, so don't pay attention. But in the interest of being fair, we should try to note some positives with him. And it also kind of like reiterates our issue with him, a lot of people's issue with this man, because we want to be fair, but it's kind of hard to be fair because the actions and the things that he's done in most people's eyes are kind of bad.
I don't even put it that way. I don't think it's hard to be fair. I think it's just hard to find kind things to say. And that even that difficulty is fair in the sense that it's not an inaccurate or unnecessarily ruthless assault on the guy. Maybe the shit about his marriage was a little, but even that has like somewhat of an established precedence that we were referring to. We weren't just like coming out of nowhere talking about his marriage like that. So I don't think it's hard to be fair with him. I think what you're pointing to is a lot of people, should I put this? You don't want to look as though you're being unfair because you're constantly saying negative things about him. And because you look like because you're always saying negative things about him, you look like you're just biased against him or against Republicans or whoever, conservatives, whatever he pretends to be representing whatever given day. But it's not that you're unfair against him or whatever group he pretends to belong to. It's just he's genuinely that unusual.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues that is had with him when it comes to the presidency so far. Everybody is always constantly talking. When you look at the debate, we're always constantly trying to, how can I say this? I guess it's trying to be framed in a way where a lot of people have like straight, like quote unquote hate or ire for this guy, where others are trying to like have a like balanced argument, I guess you could say. But it's kind of hard to have a balanced argument because some of the actions and some of the tone that he sets, it's hard to like. I gotta imagine, even if you're a positive Trump person, you have to find the whole thing kind of frustrating because when you can, it's just like the Korea thing. If people don't know, the United States pulled out the South Korea summit, where they were supposed to negotiate with them and try to come up with terms of peace. Trump issued a letter where he basically gave reasoning that was awkward and weird as to why he doesn't want to do the summit. It confused South Korea. It confused North Korea, although North Korea is more angry, more hostile about it. Like I get part of it because North Korea has said some threatening things over the past few weeks, or some like really fucked up things. But I don't get it because it feels like this guy's let his ego about who he is and like the administration he represents, instead of be like, you know what, we've seen North Korea be this try to be this off tilt about everything they do. Let's just still go to the table and try to figure out how to like best them there and to intimidate them there instead of just backing off, because I feel like that's what North Korea wanted anyway, or was at least expecting, like a reaction like this from him so that people could frame it as a negative for him. And I feel like it's a concept and a point he doesn't get, like a merit of the office. It's like, sure, I understand people feel like politicians lie and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes you got to play the game and lie, and at least to maneuver things to your positive, like a positive position for you and your administration. And that would make you look like you're a competent functioning government at the least, which I feel like none of them try to do. No, it's like you look at people like Sarah Sanders, like, God damn it. Why do you act the way you act as a press secretary and say the things you say to the press? You threaten them. You make fun of them. You chastise them for doing their job. and you want to control the imagery, you want to control the narrative, and it's like it's not how it should work. I mean, again, I understand part of the whole control the narrative thing, but there's a way to do it. So I don't know.
I mean, sure. How further back on the Korea thing, like you said, President Trump did announce that he was, at least for the moment, pulling back on that. For all I know, he's announced today that it's back on. But yeah, that entire situation is just odd. And when you point to Sarah Sanders, you point to a more systemic problem with his administration, is that it's filled with largely just incompetence. One of the things that pissed off North Korea was when John Bolton, is it John?
Yeah.
John Bolton. The dude with the mustache, the security advisor to the president, said something like, our policy with North Korea would be something similar to what we did with Libya, which I don't think he meant it the way it was taken, because if you know about that, their leader Gaddafi was not treated so good. He was killed. So if you're Kim Jong-un over in North Korea and you hear one of our high-ranking officials say that, yeah, same thing we did with Libya, we'll do that in North Korea, it probably doesn't sound very good. I don't think that's what he meant. As far as the killing thing, obviously, I doubt that's what he meant. I think he just meant, however,
I would hope not.
Whatever the agreements for denuclearization were with them would be somewhat replicated. I'd be very surprised if he meant he was going to kill them. But that said, and here I am defending the guy because I care about being fair. And I think he has a wonderful mustache that needs to be appreciated, so I'm defending him a little bit here. While I don't think he was making a threat in that sense, it was just an objectively kind of stupid thing to say, which would almost obviously have the type of reaction it had, right? So, yeah. I mean, you have that, like you said, Sanders coming out saying crazy shit all the time. I feel like Pence actually did say something, which is what one of the other things that pissed them off, because I know they called Pence like a dummy or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember precisely what Vice President Pence actually said in the first place. There's just so much back and forth. My point is, you have Trump, who's obviously a political naive. He's not very experienced. He's not very bright. Let's be quite honest. But he's surrounded himself with people not too unlike him, who are incompetent, brash. They just say shit, off the cuff, which pisses everybody else in the world off. So, I mean, you have that, and then you just have the plain and simple fact that they're not really that coordinated, right? So you have Nikki Haley, the can't remember her official title.
Yeah, she's like the UN representative of UN or something like that.
So she'll go out there and she'll say some shit that is not necessarily in line with what the president says, because the president keeps shifting his stance every 10 seconds, right? So you have an administration that is constantly off balance because you have a president who never makes up his mind for the most part. And you have many individuals in there who are all acting incompetent in their own way. So I think that in itself hurt the North Korea thing quite a bit. But even beyond that, and before, all this shit, you go back, a few weeks when everything was great between, I shouldn't say great, but a far more cheery atmosphere between the two groups, between America and North Korea as we were heading toward the summit. And then you go further back, Trump's behavior has been absolutely ridiculous. Before coming up to talk about these talks, he was always threatening them all the time. And not like light threats, like fire and fury, So he was always taking the hard style approach there. If you fast forward to when we're doing this summit stuff, he starts acting like everything's wonderful. We're going to denuclearize the whole peninsula. I'm going to get a Nobel Peace Prize. To be fair, he didn't say that he was going to get one, nor did he suggest that he should, at least as far as I remember. But he certainly was strutting his stuff like he'd accomplished something pretty major before we even had the summit at all, right? I guess you could argue that it was under his presidency that, we got some of these hostages back from North Korea. Although, what do we get, 3 hostages?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure 2 of them were probably taken during his presidency, though. But
yeah, he got a couple of I believe they were reporters or journalists that got caught over there and brought out. And of course, he took precedent. By the way, part of another problem is that it's not him taking precedent; it's the way he takes precedent on things. In that situation, he took credit for that, but also bragged about other things that had nothing to do with the subject, and was like kind of tangents on what's going on, like the Russia deal and all that. It's like, and see, we didn't even make it 10 minutes, by the way. Not talking, like the one question I gave you that was supposed to be positive about him.
I said plenty of positive things, I think.
No, I'm just saying you said something positive that didn't last 10 minutes. It wasn't a 10 minutes. It was like you said something.
Well, I thought, to be fair, I thought when you said 10 minutes that was an unfair amount of time to expect anybody to talk positively about what's happening right now.
But it's just the point of, you can't even do 10 minutes. That's the problem.
No, I mean, if you really wanted that, you probably should have told me that like a week ahead of time and let me do some research or something. Like maybe I could pull it off.
But it shouldn't be like that.
No, it shouldn't. But I am just pointing out that I haven't been thinking too much about it before you said it. So off the top of my head, no, not much. I think in passing, I mentioned the fact that he got some of these hostages back. But where I was going with that really was that one of his issues, even when things seemed to be going kind of okay, is that he kept overselling what was happening. We're having this summit. He made it sound like it's over. I win. Nobel Peace Prize for me, guys. Don't worry. They're going to denuclearize. It's going to be great. I mean, he was, even in something as serious as this issue with North Korea, he was talking like a used car salesman. Like, not even like used car, like he was trying to sell the world on this great thing happening that he hadn't really completed at all. I mean, we were still in the infancy of trying to get something going with North Korea, right? Like this summit that they keep talking about hasn't even happened yet, and right now isn't going to happen. As far as I know at this moment, again, they could have flipped back on that, but I don't know if that makes sense to you. But just the way he talks makes it seem like he's accomplishing far more than he is, and because of that, he's jacking up everybody's expectations to a dangerous point, because if and when he fails, that just makes him look so much worse than he had to. Because he brags too fucking much, right? And he promises too much. So if he doesn't deliver, he looks stupid. And I guess more to the point, America looks kind of stupid when he does that.
Yeah. It's like saying, because I got this girl's number, clearly she's going to fuck me. And like, it's like, no, that doesn't mean she's going to fuck you. She just gave you a number because she's interested in talking to you. That don't mean that you're going to get it. But that's him. He goes from, he takes one thing and takes a leap with it. And it's really, really hard to, I mean, at least to me, to take him serious. Because he says things and he confirms things that haven't been necessarily confirmed or negotiated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he certainly just says shit. That is one huge issue with him. And, with North Korea, it isn't as though they've been the most trustworthy, right? They've promised things before and then just kind of didn't hold up to them. So we already had a precedence of not super trustworthy behavior with them before now. So for him to keep talking like he's already sealed the deal on this shit has been a huge problem. And I know some people hear me say that and they're going to pause and be like, whoa, he didn't talk like he was going to seal the deal. He kept saying things like, we may get a deal, we may not. He was very indecisive at some points. I will grant that on some level, but that's also part of the problem with him. Like 1 second he's bragging as though he's done everything. The next second, it's like he's trying to cover his ass, essentially. Because I don't know if you saw him talk, but there certainly were times where he kept saying things like, "We may reach a deal, we probably won't reach a deal." I remember the other day he said something along the lines of, "I can't tell you how or why it will work out, but it all works out in the end." It was.
This is problem with his way of he's doing. It's like I don't know. I feel like he's not doing it proper. Like I remember, this is going to be weird because some people might not agree, but one of the better things that came from the original George Bush Senior's administration was part of original Desert Storm, when we invaded and we didn't take out Saddam, but we hurt their government into where they would stop attacking Kuwait. And you know, a lot of people would say that was a bad thing, but it was like Iraq was attacking Kuwait. He protected an ally. It was more so for the whole oil thing, but he didn't allow another country to take another country over. That was cool. Another thing that George Bush did that I thought was cool was when the Soviet Union fell apart and the Cold War ended. The wall was taken down. It collapsed. What have you? People were coming at him was like, "Yo, you should be excited what you did and how under your presidency, how great this all happened." And his whole stance was, I'm happy to see this happen, but I'm not going to sit here and do a victory lap. There's a lot of things that need to go on and need to be discussed and that needs to be addressed before we can just sit here and want to glad hand each other and, pat each other on the back over this whole thing. We have to figure out what's going to happen in this block of the world, how it's going to develop. Germany's reunified. There's parts of the Eastern Europe bloc that now has to straighten itself out. It was like looking back over the history with things like how the Croatian War and things like that went. It was like, this dude was fucking right. Why am I going to sit here and fucking, jerk myself off knowing that there's a lot more to this than just boom. Soviet Union collapse, Berlin Wall down, victory for the USA. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you're dealing with problems of this magnitude, you have to be a lot more far thinking. You have to think decades ahead if you can. I was going to say centuries, but that might be a bit unreasonable. But you have to think about at least what's going to happen within the next couple of generations as a result of your actions, which I genuinely don't think Trump thinks past maybe 5 minutes. I don't know if that's unfair, but
I don't think it's unfair because he's all about the moment. You're talking about a guy who, since his presidency has started, it's been all about different moments. It's never necessarily been about completing a job. It's just like with this Korea thing. They were hyped over this Korea thing. They were he didn't totally celebrate, but in the beginning, he fucking did the fist pump thing. And then reality started setting in. It was like, oh, well, maybe we need to walk this back. But he was fucking hype in the whole, his constituency. He needs a Nobel Peace Prize and blah, blah, blah. It's like, y'all don't even have ink to paper. And
you don't even have the pens in the same room as the paper.
Exactly. You're fucking going crazy over this whole thing. I admit, partially, I was like, well, that's impressive. But I was always with the caveat, it's impressive that this is a possible thing, but it needs to be a reality. It's not done yet. You can't mission accomplish this.
I think the word I would have used instead of impressive would be surprising. So, again, given the rhetoric he was using for months before this, Little Rocket Man, Fire and Fury, shit like that, I thought it was almost surprising, I guess, that North Korea would come to the table. Again, I've said, given the economic stresses they've probably been receiving, that probably has something to do with it more than the idea that Trump's rhetoric actually works in any given way. But I think it was you. I think maybe you said it last week, or maybe it was a private conversation. This idea that he was going to seal the deal on peace with North Korea was going to be his. It's
really his quote unquote legacy moment. You know how most presidents tend to have like that one thing that, whether it be it good or bad, you can look at and like this is the highlight of his career.
Yeah, it would be justification for everybody who voted for him. I guess it would be the way that he established himself, regardless of everything else he's done, any other negative effect you think he's had. If he was able to do this, it would make it almost impossible, I guess. It would make it very difficult for people who don't agree with him to criticize him as thoroughly as they do, because you'd say, well, you know, as shitty as his rhetoric is and as bad as a person and blah, 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 he managed to get this done, so maybe his way has some merit to it, right?
Yeah. It would show the method to his madness in a way.
Which I don't agree that it should, but I can see that it would give him a way to defend him and his defenders, a way to defend themselves if he got this done. And he still can, technically, I guess, but this was going to be his way to shut everybody up. And you even saw it before anything happened. He would say things like, you know, it's surprising to me all these people trying to tell me how to negotiate peace with North Korea when they couldn't do it themselves. It's not a quote, by the way. I just can't remember exactly the wording he said, but it was essentially in that vein where everybody else has been trying for decades and can't get it done, yet they want to tell me how to do it. And then if you actually went and did it after saying that shit, what would you say?
Set up generations, almost.
He would. I think the word I was looking for earlier was vindication. It would vindicate him for his generally awful rhetoric, for all the things he does that most of us in America think is insanely stupid. If it would have just worked easily for him, he could be like, see, you guys are just stuck in the way you think things should be. I brought a new way, a different way that works, which is honestly what he was selling himself on a lot when the election was going on, right? He was priding himself on being an outsider.
Right. It's like, no, regular government sucks. It's not the way government should be run. We should run it like this.
Yes, it's too bureaucratic. You know, that's one of the things he gets criticized for now, is like pretty much going around red tape and such. But if he just did that and it worked, we would have to question whether there should be so much red tape at all, right? Maybe it slows down the process too much. He had and has an opportunity to shut us all up, I suppose. And I think he's failing miserably with that opportunity.
Yeah, no. There's no. I mean, yeah, I get people who don't like the way government is run. And yeah, his whole approach is completely off the wall, insane in a lot of senses to people. But if that off the wall insane thing would have bore like positive fruit, but I mean, I know a lot of people feel like a lot of things he's quote unquote done, whatever the fuck it is he's done, has been good for America. But this would be something that would be undeniable to any and everybody, not just in this country. It's just like anybody across the world, the UN, everybody, they would have been like, yo, we actually have to applaud this guy. Like,
as begrudgingly as it might be, sure, you would have to. I mean, fuck it, let's say if he gets this done, I will have to give him credit for that, and I will, whenever that happens.
Yeah.
You know, maybe with some caveats, not just to be a dick or not to give him credit, but I do think he's taking more credit for this than he deserves. I do think Moon in South Korea has been the main catalyst for this shit.
And that's the thing. You can give the credit to a lot of other people. You can give the true credit, but again, no matter how much he's done in this, it's something he can hang his hat on.
Sure. And I'm not going to deny him any credit at all necessarily. I'm just saying that if this gets done, I will give him whatever credit I think he deserves when I'm thinking about it, right? I was just pointing out that I don't think he should get as much credit as maybe he thinks he should get. But I would be compelled to give him something just on the principle of fairness that's all I was getting at there.
It's like devil's advocate. A lot of presidents take credit for a lot of things that they probably shouldn't get. It's just like, if you want to take this stance, you could say Lincoln gets too much credit for the Civil War in the sense that, yeah, he emancipated slaves and he was in charge during this, but if it wasn't for, Grant and the other generals winning the war, fuck. All the things that he did could have fell right flat on his face. Sure. So it's like, yeah, he gets the credit for the moves that he makes, and he's going to get the credit as being what we call him, like, what was it, the Great Unifier or something like that, and give him all these other platitudes. But it's like, he could have fucked up.
I guess that's fair though, because leaders, I was going to say presidents, I guess it's leaders in general, presidents especially, yes, maybe they get credit for things that they maybe ought not or more than they deserve, but they also get blamed for more than they deserve too. So,
very true. Very true.
Sometimes, I mean, fuck, look at Obama. He got blamed a little bit for when the economy was annoying or wasn't great. Even though it was not great as he was coming in, he more inherited it. He got blamed for spending a lot of money, even though that was...
Yeah, it's funny. He came in on the downside. He went out on the upside. Yet he gets blamed for the downside. Trump gets blamed for the upside. I mean, he gets credit for the upside. So
I think that is probably how this goes with presidents in general, right? I think it's just a cognitive thing with the citizens. They see however they perceive the society as being at the moment, and then whoever's president at the moment should get the blame or praise for that. I think it would require more thought on the terms, more thought from the citizens in general. I think it's just a natural instinct humans have to do that.
Yeah.
Like if you press them and made them think about it, I think they would realize that it's not accurate, but they would need some sort of pressing first.
Yeah.
But yes,
it'd be amazing.
I should have looked up to see where we are with that North Korea shit, because it's just so all over the place.
As far as I know, we're still on we're not doing it. I haven't seen anything today.
I heard
that they're back in business, or at least coming back to the table to at least try.
I thought I saw some headline when I was in the store just a bit ago before walking in that said North Korea is still willing to talk or something, but whatever. I saw somebody make the argument that it's odd for Trump to pull out of this thing based on whatever North Korea said, considering the way he's been talking about them for the past year.
Yeah, no. They're shit talking your vice president. It's like you shit talk their whole nation, their president. You threaten them. Chill out, dude.
I will say I don't know. I think it's odd. I don't want to say it's okay to be shit talking us.
Yeah.
Simply because our president is an asshole. But I guess it doesn't necessarily feel fair to me to say that they should just be ignored. Like we get to say whatever by which I mean Trump, get to say whatever the fuck we want, but you have to shut the fuck up. I don't know. His mouth is putting me in an uncomfortable position here. Because I don't want to give a pass to somebody, to a foreign administration talking shit like that. But it's hard for me to argue against them based on what our president says.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very, especially since a lot of it has probably been unprovoked.
It's been a lot of back and forth tension. I think their main beef was when they saw America doing those drills with South Korea. You know, they called it practice for invasions or something, even though it was just like a routine training thing that we do with other countries.
Yeah, but again, rational thought would be, okay, well, I understand how y'all feel, so let's talk about this. This is something we always do. It's not like we're trying. It's like it's always been prepared, and we have to be practical. You guys are going to be able to do military drills just in case South Korea decides to do something. Just like they should be able to do the same thing. You know, it's like we don't have an adult at the table to make that like conversation happen, or to at least make that point. You know, and that's my biggest problem. It's like we've kind of known Kim Jong Un's unbalance, his instability, the way he takes care of business. We've had presidents in the past that have reacted to it in a more calmer manner. This time we have an impractical president who's going to react to it impractical, who's going to like do the playground things. Like they're going to act like a fool and act like a child. He's going to act like a fool and act like a child. And it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how most fights when you're young get start, because nobody is adult enough or mature enough to see the reason in the situation and avoid the worst possible scenario. I don't know. And then you have the whole thing with Tommy Learn, and it's like, dude, why are you getting into that? She's not, you know, it's weird how you're in defense of her, which, yeah, those people shouldn't have threw the war on her. That was disrespectful. I don't care how much you don't like her.
Yeah, so I guess the way you described this to me, because I hadn't seen it yet, was she just sitting down in a restaurant?
She was like at a restaurant. She was leaving the area. People were, of course, saying stuff to her. People don't like her. She's made herself an unbearable human being. But as she's walking by one person who's cursing her out, he just straight up throws his glass of water at her. Like literally just splashing the water towards her. I don't think it hit her. Or if it did, it grazed her. She was pretty much just about out, just walking away. So if it hit her, it may have hit her a little bit.
Okay.
And Trump seemed not to like her and treated in support of her. It's like, you know, I get it. You should not celebrate something like that. Probably should admonish that. But the way he did it was like, oh, they messed with my friend, so I'm going to attack. Whereas you see things like the NFL, where we've had the protests being banned by the NFL, which was ridiculous. Did you hear the full story on that, by the way?
Before you go there, I just want to know the president's need to jump in on every one of these little fights is one of his biggest problems. He clearly shows that he has extreme bias toward, generally speaking, the political left of the country, and he'll side with anybody he thinks will praise him. I mean, he'll side largely with just Republicans in general, especially those that he feels are going to praise him and be on his side. And if you're not on his side, he'll attack you fucking relentlessly. I think there might have been a shot of me laughing at the beginning of the podcast because I was just scrolling through his Twitter and there was something like one of his tweets just started, "Democrats are so obviously rooting against us." And I was like, what is this guy's fucking problem? He doesn't even pretend that he wants anything to be bipartisan ever, that he wants unity, that he wants all of us to work together towards some common good. He doesn't even pretend that that's an idea that ever crosses his mind. And I think when he weighs in on shit like Tommy Lauren getting a bit of water splashed at her, that is just further proof of that. I'm not trying to diminish what that other diner did. I don't think you throw things at people that, you fight dumb ideas with better ideas, not idiocy like that. And all you really did, whatever fucking guy did that, was justify their bullshit, right? Because now she can go and say, see, the liberals are fucking crazy. They attack people instead of talking. That's all you really did, was give them more talking points. So good job. So I'm obviously not defending what that guy fucking did, that, or gal, or whoever it was that threw the water.
It was a guy.
It was stupid, and it's not what I support. But Trump isn't weighing in on this to, how should I put this, promote peace and reasonable talking or anything objective. He's just weighing in because he sees one of his teammates getting a little grief, and so he's shit talking back. This is the same guy who promoted violence at his rallies during the election, right? This is not a guy who really gives a shit about that kind of stuff. If it was the other way around, I guarantee you would not be commenting on it at all. So I just wanted to point that out. His need to weigh in on every fucking, to be present on every battleground, shows that just how biased he generally is.
No, because it's not just the bias; it's just the tone. He wants to fight, and in the position you are, picking fights in this magnitude is not what you should want to do. Because you got to work with people. At least you should feel like you want to work with people. You want to make things the best situation where everybody can benefit off of this. But it's clear that he has one decided side that he wants to support, and everybody else can go fuck themselves. And I guess you have the right to do that. But as president, it just seems so foreign, so weird that we're back at that position when we've had for decades and decades and decades presidents who've pushed towards a more middle ground in society. And it's like now all of a sudden this guy's just totally wanting to reset everything. It's like, say what you will about the Bushes, say what you will, about George Bush Jr., especially with his quote unquote stupidity and what have you, and all that. The whole Kanye West Bush doesn't like black people thing, whatnot. Yeah, there were some social issues within their realms, but they weren't just blatantly throwing the middle finger up to anybody who wasn't white, or it wasn't a Republican, or wasn't a conservative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It is an extreme issue. I don't think, you talk about what anybody has the right to do. And I'm thinking of whether I want to touch this right now or when do we get more to the football thing? I'll wait until the football thing, because there's other things that have been bothering me, like the fact that the EPA blocked some news organizations from
attending. Yeah, you can't see him talk about the bullshit that he's up to. That was so fucking dumb.
Yeah, that was super American. So I think this might have happened a couple times, but the EPA was having this summit on what the fuck was it? Something about chemicals in the water or some shit like that. I don't know. Yeah. Fuck. I can't remember exactly what the summit was supposed to be on, but clearly they were discriminating against some news agencies. I think CNN was blocked out, and
CNN, Associated Press, which wow, you're really the Associated Press.
I don't think AP got blocked at first, because it sounded to me like they were there and then they got kicked out after they said something. Whatever the case was, there was several news organizations blocked out at what I believe was supposed to be, one of these events. I can't remember the term, like free press or whatever, where news organizations can just kind of come. They're not they don't have to like RSVP with these type of events. You know what I mean? They can just be there usually, but they were blocked out without any really good explanation. I think their explanation was something like, about
They didn't have enough room
or whatever. Which
that was basic. That was it. There was space limitations, and they couldn't let them in.
Yeah, but that was exposed to be bullshit. So, I mean,
yeah,
this type of thing. Well, first of all, it just drives me crazy because it's the EPA, right? So, as somebody who cares about like science and the environment, what's going on over there just drives me fucking nuts. The way they're just repealing shit and doing whatever they want, left and right. Even though a lot of us don't notice it, maybe we should dig into that sometime next week or something. But just the actions they take in general. And then you have Scott Pruitt, who is a machine made for spitting out controversy and scandal.
Yeah, that man does his job in such a horrible way.
But he still has it. And then you have... I need somebody to explain to me why the fuck he still has that job. I don't know how long an investigation takes. Somebody needs to explain it. Somebody needs to explain to me why this dude is in prison. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, no. Or why more people aren't railing against him, especially MAGA people. This man is abusing like government finances. He's doing the thing that you have basically said that politicians do all the time, which is unfairly take advantage of their government positions and use it to profit and all of that. It's like this man is the sole example of this shit, and he doesn't get enough shit, if any.
Nope. Then I don't quite understand what the reason is. I wouldn't say the MAGA people are that interested in government waste. I think that's more of like a traditional conservative stance. And I think MAGA people just care about Trump. So I don't think those people are conservative in the traditional sense, but I digress there. My main issue with that, outside of all the annoying shit about the environment being fucked in the ass and this guy getting away with some heinous stuff, is this idea that you can just block out whatever press you feel like blocking out. Is that not the most un-American shit ever? Are you serious?
Yeah.
We have a free press in this country for a reason. This guy still follows Trump's behavior, where he's always railing against the press, calling them fake news, calling them the enemy of the people. You see everybody in his circle doing it. You talked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders earlier. Every time she talks to the press, she's rude as possibly can be. She's calling them liars, accusing them of, making up scandal, talking to them like they're stupid. I mean, she speaks to the press with absolute contempt, and she's the press secretary, right? She is supposed to be the White House's liaison to, did I call her the press secretary? Whatever. No,
here's the press secretary.
Yeah. Her job is to speak on behalf of the White House to the press, and if you guys never listen to her just talk to the press in these briefings, just listen to her, man. She feels like she never wants to be there. She is rude all the time. She lies all the time. She lies without any punishment, by the way, on behalf of the president and the White House. For someone whose job it is to talk to the press, it is depressing to watch her do it. And I think you see, again, I guess my argument is that you see Trump's attitude toward the press spreading out to everybody else, where you have the EPA feeling that it's okay to just block certain news organizations out of these types of events. It's not okay, and I don't know where it is on the legality spectrum there, but it certainly is a problem. I can't believe I have to even say out loud in America that that's a problem.
Yeah, that's part of our problem too, because you get the whole freedom of the press argument that's being made, especially nowadays when people come after people with these really offensive or racist, however you want to frame it, views. They're screaming freedom of press, freedom of press. We're seeing right now the press under this administration is having that idea of the freedom being attacked. It's conditional freedom. It's like, as long as you go along with my viewpoint, we'll treat you nice. But if you don't, we're going to try to destroy you in any possibilities by making people feel like you're not credible, by making, it harder for you to do your job, by going on the attack and, just basically shitting on the press every opportunity they can to frame the argument and to frame the viewpoint of it so that people don't care, don't trust. I mean, people already had a sense of lack of trust when it comes to the press anyway, but it's like this administration wants to build on that fear, wants to perpetuate the idea that the press is not your friend. The press isn't something you should pay attention to. The press is, only a tool of the people who want to stop you from being able to do what you want to do in life and having your own opinions and freedoms. They're not about like being fair and like, all of that. They just want to control you. And it's a funny thing because at the end of the day, it ends up being, if you really were to pay attention, it's the government controlling you and your opinion of the press the way that they're doing it. But nobody seems to see that.
You look at other countries where the government, it's a state-run media, essentially. The government is the one that controls the press, like Russia does, where they control the way the government looks, which is why Putin has as many genuine supporters as he does, because he pretty much controls the narrative in that country. So I think a lot of the people in his country just don't really know what's going on, which is the point of a free press, is that they are a way in which we hold those in power responsible. They are the way that we know what the fuck is going on. And when you have the people in power crippling the free press, that makes us less able to know what the fuck is going on. It's not healthy for a democracy. In fact, it's not a democracy when it happens, which is kind of my point, right?
Exactly.
It's extremely dangerous. And I know there's a lot of other shit going on in the news. With North Korea, there was a shooting. There's a lot going on, but I feel like this in particular needs a lot more attention because you cannot let that just happen continuously from here on. It's extremely problematic. It's the exact shit you see in the types of countries you don't want to fucking live in. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because maybe there has been points where there have been subversive pressure by the government when it comes to media, but this is the most overt exercise in destroying and controlling the mindset that I've ever seen. I mean, it's not just they're doing it on TV. That's part of the reason why I think his Twitter is effective to some people, because we never had a president be this active on social media. So she's controlling it. They're doing it through social media. They're doing it through the regular press. They're just doing it at any point they can. The press secretary is out there, like you said, making mocking people, picking fights at press conferences. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen between Sanders and Spicer. I've never seen press secretaries act like this.
For anybody who hasn't watched her talk for an extended period of time, I hope I don't seem like I'm being unfair to you guys. I would highly suggest you watch her talk for maybe 5 minutes or so in one of these briefings. Just really pay attention. She legitimately accuses the press of being liars, of being biased, of being trying to spin up scandals that don't exist. Essentially of being stupid, because she'll constantly say something like, the president has already commented on XYZ, or we've already made our stance on this known. even when it's objectively true that they haven't, which is why the press is asking in the fucking first place. Or when the press points out obvious inconsistencies, she'll try to like flip it on them. I'm not saying these things because I don't like her as a person or because I hate her administration or her president or whatever. She's just like that every time she talks to the press. And I don't even think Spicer was quite. No, Spicer was a dick.
He was a dick, but it was like you could tell he was trying to be a dick. Whereas her, she just has all types of disdain and disrespect towards people.
Sure. I have to think about it a little more because I feel like I was about to say Spicer wasn't as bad, but I don't think he was. I think I'm just more used to seeing Sarah now. Like Spicer's more of a distant memory to me at this moment. So I'd have to really like, I'd have to watch some more of him back and then try to compare. So I'm not going to say that he was worse or not worse because I don't think he's fresh enough in my mind for me to make that call at the moment. But he wasn't great. I at least remember that much. So
no, I seriously feel like he wasn't as aggressive and as over the top with her. Like I don't recall him getting into as many personal battles with press people as she has. And when people ask questions, I feel like I remember him attacking, but I don't remember him being as dismissive as well as condescending and harsh. She seems like really, really harder. Her body language.
Oh, those are two good words that I missed: dismissive and condescending. Perfect. I was probably searching for those two words at some point, but she's
it's just like she answers a question and the look on her face and the way in which she says it. It just feels like she has no use for them whatsoever.
Which it wouldn't be too big a deal if she was truthful, if she was consistent, if she was saying something useful. Because I mean, there have almost been times where it's like, guys, I know you have to cover the news, but don't you just want to take the day off? She's not going to tell you anything anyway, right? She's going to bullshit her way through this like she does every fucking day. Why don't you just take the day off? Fuck it. You deserve it. Just everybody take it.
It's like the April Ryan incident where she's like asking the one question. She's just being so fucking rude to April Ryan. It's like, I'm asking a question because we don't have an answer and all of that. And she's just like fucking coming at April Ryan like she just, asked a personal question about her kids that was offensive. It's ridiculous. I really don't understand it.
That is one of the. That's part of the reason I have such a hard time watching her, and Trump sometimes too. But I'm used to seeing her because she's the press secretary. Watching her respond to the press because she doesn't really answer some questions. A lot of times she'll just say it's already been answered. It's like, no, it hasn't. That's why they keep asking you because they never got an answer for it. They're not like a bunch of lunatics that are sitting in front of you. They keep asking you the same question for a reason because you keep not answering it. So
yeah, and she has such childish demeanor about her, like it's that I know you are, but what am I type demeanor that she has. It's like, what does that fucking mean? I'm asking you, like, just say no comment if you don't want to answer it, or you can find better ways. And that's the thing I don't understand. I feel like they just need to be very flippant, arrogant, and hostile, be it to the press, be it to, liberal thought, anything. It's like it's a trickle down effect from him where everybody feels the need to be rude as fuck for no reason and not have a conversation like an adult.
People made the same argument about Trump's effect on the environment when the McCain thing came up a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember what her position was, but the person who said McCain
he's gonna die anyway when they talked about his vote on certain issues.
They made the argument that people feel comfortable saying things like that, excuse me, because Trump says shit like that all the time. And I don't know how much I really went with that argument. I could definitely see its merits, but I was still a little on the fence about it. But when you talk about his effect on the way the government talks about the press, I think it's more obvious there that he is a major factor in the way that this is happening. Because like you said, a press secretary wouldn't normally do this type of thing. And granted, there always has been and probably always will be, a bit of tension between the press and the government. I'm going to rephrase. There always has been and there always should be a bit of tension between the press and the government, because it shows you that they're not like one and the same. If you don't have tension between the government and the media, that means that the government probably owns the media. So, you should want a bit of tension, but this isn't like tension that we've always had between the two of them. It's pretty much just an outright assault from Trump and his administration on the media. Nonstop, every day.
No, but it's just like everything they deal with in a very unnecessarily heavy-handed, disrespectful way to me. That's part of my issue with this administration, is that it's the diplomacy, the tact, all of that is gone. It's like, again, make fun of George Bush all you want for him saying stuff, like the fool me once bullshit, or what was the word that he said? He's a cider or something crazy like that. It's like, yeah, make fun of him for all of that. He wasn't trying to be silly or trying to be disrespectful or trying to sound dumb. He was still, professional in his manners, even when you were making fun of him. The guy he could have at any time, to be quite honest, went the fuck off on all of us and be like, fuck you for all these jokes. But no, he act like an adult. And throughout the whole thing, he act like an adult.
Which isn't like, it shouldn't be a high bar.
No, it shouldn't.
It's not a high bar, I guess. I guess the reason none of us ever praised him before now for acting like an adult is because it's just assumed that you will act like an adult because you are an adult. So
exactly. That's the problem that we really do have with this administration. It's like there are no adults in the room. Like I've said many times, it's weird to see this because everybody, you've seen John Kelly say some stupid shit. Pruitt do and say stupid shit. Ben Carson, stupid shit. Sarah Sanders, stupid shit. That intern or whoever she was that said whatever she said about McCain, stupid shit. It's like you go down the list. We've seen people get fired for the stupid shit that they said, going all the way back. What is going on? It's like, what and why are people accepting this? It is YouTube in real life.
I think that's an important psychological question, I guess, is why do people accept that? I think one of the amazing features of the human mind is its ability to adapt. I think that's why you see humans able to survive in any environment. You can see somebody move from some country to here or whatever other country, like randomly different cultures, and they have the ability to assimilate into that culture well enough. I think it's impressive, the adaptability of the human mind, but I think it might also allow us to get too used to certain things that we should not.
No, and this is one of them. I will always say this is not the way we should want our country ran.
I think the second thing is that not enough of us think about how the country should be run. I mean, the thing is like assaulting the media. I feel like as much as I'm bitching about it right now, because I'm a whiny little bitch like that. I feel like I'm complaining about it because I've thought about the fact that it matters to have a free press. I think there are certain principles that make up America, and I don't think enough people think about them. I think we as a society probably just, I don't even want to say take them for granted. I think a lot of people just never think about them at all as ideas that may be right or wrong, or ideas that may be worth defending or not. They just don't think of these as ideas at all. They just kind of have lived in a society where those were the popular ideas. So I think the reason a lot of people don't complain is that they never defended those ideas to begin with in particular.
And part of it may be that you never thought to have to defend that. Like you said before, like part of it is that we don't think about what's the properly run because maybe it's always been a certain way. And again, this guy came through with this whole, drain the swamp thing. And it's just like, yo, what are you doing? This is crazy. Sure. Like I've never seen this. I mean, I'm not averse to cursing, but have you ever heard a president curse as much on TV? You know what I mean?
No, I guess not.
I mean, think about stuff like that. It's like it's a weird little social things on top of the big things that have changed. And I'm not averse to cursing. But to see the president of the United States talk about shit like grabbing by the pussy and calling places shitholes, and I've seen him curse in press conferences, at his rallies, and it's just like, okay, I guess that makes you more like us. Maybe that's the appeal. It makes him more like quote unquote us.
I mean, you could argue that side either way. I guess you could argue that a leader can be more personable. I think there's also something to be said for having a leader that feels different than the rest of society. You don't want a leader that feels too normal. I think the Obamas. Yeah. Sorry?
I think the Obamas were personable.
Yeah, I think he was a good example. It was already not just charismatic. He was friendly and warm and all that stuff. But he was also serious, like a leader. So, like, I don't know. He didn't seem like so down to earth that he was just any other motherfucker in the room. Like, you knew he was the president, right? But he wasn't like just such a robot or acting like he was so high above the rest of us. So I think he hit a nice middle ground. I'm trying to think about times I've seen him speak and stuff. Like, I think he struck the balance quite well. So, to your point about cursing, could Obama have cursed? I guess. I don't think he needed to. Personally, I don't think the cursing matters. I think it's just the tone that Trump uses. I think the cursing is an ancillary issue. I don't think it matters at all, actually. I think it's just the tone that he's always using. I mean,
yeah, I guess.
I don't know if he even brought it up, but just like a couple weeks ago. Has it even been a couple weeks? He called. Yeah, I think we brought up on the last podcast. He called the immigrants animals or whatever, and then walked it back and said he was talking about MS-13. But come the fuck up.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. It's just like a lot of weird things around this whole administration that's hard to deal with. Again, cursing is not hard, but it's part of the jarring effect because, like you said, it's not necessarily the cursing, but the way in which he uses it. That's just
disgusting, unbecoming of a human, let alone the president. Terrifying for the people he's targeted.
Well, maybe that's why it's more jarring because it's usually used in anger and kind of a way to, downgrade certain groups, which shouldn't be. It's just dumb. It's just dumb that this is what we live in right now. I don't know. See, and I didn't even have to ask the question, what is the things that bother us the most? Because it's already easy to do so in this.
They're the same things that bothered me even before he was elected. Just the damage he was already doing to certain important things, like the idea of a free press, as an example, like I don't know the word is civility in public discourse, just general shit that he was already breaking away at before he even got elected. It's just the same. If you ask me why I wouldn't have voted for Trump, I would have told you many, many reasons, among some of which we've already covered, because I think he's dangerous in so many ways. This news shit is just one example. He's dangerous to democracy. He's like some sort of anti-democracy supervillain.
Yeah, no, he is. It's amazing because we still have 2 more years technically of this. Unless something like monumentally profound happens with the whole investigation on him.
They found the PP tapes.
Yeah, I don't even think he's gonna go because I think the PP tapes are not gonna do enough.
No, they won't. But I think we deserve them. We deserve to know they exist.
You just want to see you're perverted. You just want to.
It's not that I want to see them. It's just you see Trump and you're like, yeah, he's the kind of guy. I don't need to see them. I just want proof they exist.
It would be interesting to see what he says.
I would be interested in seeing what the evangelical sector say.
Yeah, because they've been wholeheartedly defending this dude, and how do you defend that? Well, then again, they defend everything else, so I guess they have a way to defend that shit.
No, it wouldn't be. I mean, I fully expect them to defend it. I just want to see them say it.
Like, a man, God is willing to let you to pee freely upon a mate. God understands.
As long as you're both the opposite sex.
Right.
But you get peed on by no boy, Jimmy.
We'll save that for our Catholic priests.
I mean, goddamn.
Where's the lie in that shit? Fuck.
I wasn't defending Catholics.
It's fine.
It's not generally my I don't have a dog in that fight most of the time.
Gosh. The hypocrisy of
religion. Any Catholics listening, it was him who said it, not me.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Catholics.
You love me.
Sorry, Catholics. I'm sorry.
Even though I'm a dirty, worthless atheist.
I'm sorry.
Are you?
Huh?
I was going to ask if you were aware of the recent goings on in the EPA more than I am. I did see that there was I think the repeals around some hunting regulation stuff. But I didn't get to do
there's been a lot of different things. I haven't either because it's so much stuff that's going under the radar as we try to figure out what the fuck this criminal is doing.
Yeah, the sad thing is I feel like I have read something, but I just don't even remember because there's a lot that goes on over there. The reason I was thinking about that is because I can't remember. It must have been a segment on Bill Maher's show or something where he said something. It was something like, their strategy is essentially what would a dick do? And then he would list off something that they'd done recently. And his point was that some of the things they do make no sense. They're not beneficial in any way for the country. It's just the type of thing you would do if you're an asshole. And I think when I think about that, I think about all the things the EPA does where they, repeal certain regulations which allow more pollution or uncontrolled animal hunting. Like, it's the kind of things that you would do for no other reason than you're a fucking asshole. And when I see these things, I'm just like, I don't understand why you would bother to do this. Is it just because it was like an Obama era thing, or do you just actually hate animals that much? I think Don Jr. probably does some hunting, some big game hunting in Africa or whatever. But I don't know. As much as I
find that very weird.
Hmm?
Find that very weird that a Trump hunts.
I don't. Trump hunts for pussy, then he grabs it.
Yeah, like that I can understand them doing because that's in their nature. But I can't abide by some bitch ass family that's not willing to go fight a war being able to do this. So anyway.
But so the reason I bring that up is because we talk about a lot about the shit Trump says, and maybe we're not talking about enough about the shit he does, because a lot of things he does are just asshole things. Like, I don't understand what benefit they have other than maybe it puts some money in somebody's pocket, and it's just the kind of thing you do if you felt like being a dick. I don't know what his motivation is most of the time for some of the things he wants.
I guess it's pissed me off. I'm sorry. It's like this conversation has pissed me off. I've already had a conversation with Katina about the NFL thing, which I guess we're gonna have another conversation about. It pissed me off.
Those damn Negroes kneeling.
It's so fucking dumb. But
we're not there.
Can we hurry up and get there so I can just like get rid of it? Like,
I mean,
the whole situation is fucking.
So I guess which one do you want to talk about first? That or Spygate?
Spygate first, I guess, and then because this is all just people.
You know what bothers me a little bit is I feel like my ability to retain information is being challenged a bit here, because it's not like this is stuff that happened a long time ago, but I just get hit with so much. And a lot of times, like, it'll just be like I'm listening to news while I'm working, or I might read an article while I'm waiting for some code to do whatever. So it's like I get the information, but then if you ask me for specific details, I'm always fucking up a little bit. So I say that to say, like, too much shit happens nowadays, and apologies to the listeners if I don't seem to be giving you enough detail at any given moment. It's a lot, and I'm not a news anchor. It's not really my job to really have such precise facts for you all the time. That was a short aside. Spygate, as I recall, the president seemed to have accused the FBI of implanting a spy on his campaign during the election, which, need I say more? Is any other information needed?
Yeah, like, I need context. I need the legal issue that you have. I need proof. I need something more substantial than just saying you spied on me, because I honestly believe that a lot of times the FBI can spy on different things if they think that there's validity to the. That's the thing. It's not proven to me that the FBI actually spied on you. That I'm more concerned, just like, well, could you explain why they don't have right or reason? Just saying the FBI was looking at your shit doesn't mean that you're absolved. You know what I mean?
I mean,
it's just like, man, I was
with...
just sitting out here smoking my weed, and the police gonna come up here and bother me. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with them. Okay, sir. Unless you're in a place where it's legal, you have a problem.
So I'm pretty sure if you want to introduce a spy, you can't just like fucking do it. You need to have approval and like probable cause. And like there is a process as I understand it, and it's a fairly controlled one. You can't just fuck it, I don't like the guy, we're gonna spy on him and do that. So I think just even the idea of that they could have used a spy is being unfairly used, because even if they had, then they probably had some fairly good reasoning based on their approval processes. Like if they were approved to use a spy with you, which even in this context, it wouldn't make any sense for them to spy on you. That's just, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, like if your whole point is they did it because they weren't supposed to, and I know they weren't supposed to, I need you to tell me why they weren't supposed to, and how'd you find out they weren't supposed to? That's the thing. Again, I need your context, sir.
If I don't think they did. Obviously, I'm almost certain they didn't.
Oh, I actually sort of believe him in the sense that, especially with this Russia thing, if they thought that there was something illegal going on with this campaign, that's precedent.
But it takes a fair amount of work to introduce a spy, and they didn't. They had informants and shit like.
That's another thing where, like, while I can believe it, I also feel like part of it is just bullshit, because with the leaks that you get in his administration, do you really need a spy?
I don't know. Given the timeline of that shit, I'm doubtful that they had a spy that they introduced into the process who had the time to climb up into their ranks and get whatever information they needed. I'm just fairly doubtful of that. But yeah, I guess my point was, if they, even on the incredibly off chance to me that they did introduce a spy to your campaign, they were probably justified, because they had to prove that they needed to be able to do. It's like getting a search warrant, right? Like you can't just do that. You can't just like roll up in somebody's house and get whatever you want. Generally speaking, right? Like you need a warrant that needs to be approved by a judge, right?
Yeah.
Similar thing with a spy. Like you couldn't just fucking put a spy out there like that. You would need some kind of approval, as far as I understand it.
Yeah,
so.
You would need the head of the FBI, which you need to prove that. I think, who was the head of the FBI at the time? Was it Clapper? I forget who it was. But somebody, some official.
That early, yeah, probably would have been that early on. Sure.
Yeah,
probably
some official would have had to.
Yeah, I guess that's my point. There's this notion that they gave a spy in there. Because I feel like what he's trying to do is play on everybody's emotions. Like, the FBI can spy on you whenever they want, but they can't. So, again, on the incredibly off chance that they were spying on you, I think we need to look, I mean, assuming that they were doing what they should be doing, if they did have a spy, which, again, I don't think they did, there was probably some fair justification, which, given the way this investigation's been shaking out with a number of indictments and shit that's been going on, you are not in a position at all right now to be criticizing what they've been doing, because they have been proven out time and time again. Your whole group is in deep shit because you guys are all a bunch of seedy motherfuckers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He can complain all he wants, but so far you have not given people reason.
But even beyond that, I wanted to touch on that a little bit, because, I mean, just the way he keeps framing the idea of a spy is not correct. But even beyond that, for the president to just say out of nowhere, they were spies. It's like when he accused Obama of wiretapping him. I mean, for him to just attack the FBI like that and say, with no proof or rhyme or reason, like I still don't know where he got this idea from, that they were spying on it. But somebody left the chat. I'm gonna see if this guy hops back in a second, but I'm not even sure if we're still live. What happens when the host drops the chat? Does the conversation keep going? All right, hold on a second, guys. Let's see what we're doing with this Black Magus guy. He just suddenly got bored of me and then decided he wanted to leave. I just shot him in IM. But while we're waiting, yeah, I mean, you can't have the president of the United States suddenly jump up and say the FBI is attacking me with no proof, no anything. He just says it out loud. Then he throws this conspiracy theory out there and just tries to make it seem more legitimate by saying it over and over again. If you look at his Twitter feed over the last week or so, he's been talking about this like it's an obvious fact. Welcome back, sir.
Dude, it's the weirdest thing. Google, see, now I'm going to speculate that Trump, Spygate. Clearly, he didn't want to hear what I was saying about context, because if that would have made sense, everybody would have heard this and they would have not, like, have a leg to stand on. Goddamn Trump. Anyway.
No, I was just saying the idea of our president attacking the FBI like this with no proof. He's throwing conspiracy theories out into the public and just making them grow and fester with everybody. The way he said this a week or so ago, again, I can't even tell if it's been a week. Shit moves so fast with this fucking guy. Whenever he said it since then, he's been piling onto it and onto it and onto it to the point where he's now just talking about it like it's a fact that he was spied on. And I'm sure some people believe him, but it's like, it's genuinely a lie that he's using to shake up trust, to disrupt whatever little trust people have in the FBI, because let's be honest, Americans in general don't tend to trust any kind of authority. They don't trust police. They don't trust the FBI, CIA. They don't trust the government. They don't trust scientists. They don't, we're not a very trusting group when it comes to anybody with power, which is a good and bad thing, I suppose. He's further annihilating whatever trust we have with these institutions, which is dangerous for a number of reasons in itself, but he's just doing this with no evidence at all. I was just telling them, if you look at his Twitter feed, he'll talk about it as though these are just facts that he's spitting out right now.
No, his campaign against not trusting institutions is pretty interesting. We talked about him in the press. Now you have him in the law.
It's not like isolated either, because he's been attacking the law institutions a lot in response to this Russia shit, I guess.
Yeah, no, he's been really, really hitting, institutions that I won't say we necessarily completely trust, because, hey, again, people have always had, disdain and fear and mistrust of press, law, and government as a whole.
And sometimes it's been earned.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it seem like people are just irrationally fearful. But sometimes, different points in history, the CIA ought not be trusted early, in earlier decades. I think they turned it around probably, but there was reason to distrust them. I don't want to be too unfair to the distrust that they may have earned in earlier decades.
No, it's something that's always been a part of history. But he wants to push the envelope.
It's certainly, but one, it's dangerous. Two, it's not factual. And three, he's doing it for self-interested reasons. He is under investigation. Well, everybody around him, including him, is under investigation. There is a big investigation that includes him. And he's doing this shit largely to disrupt it because it affects him, obviously, which I sincerely hope this somehow is added to the idea of obstruction of justice, because what else do you call what the fuck is going on here, if not him trying to obstruct justice?
Yeah, I mean, he's actively pushing the head of the Justice Department to, get involved and to curtail a lot of things that are being investigated, that are happening within the law. And
you made a push to try to get some information out of them, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which it is awesome when you can get information on investigations into you. I don't think most of us could do that, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah. No, it's not awesome at all. It's fucking dumb. Just like in certain jobs, okay. Like in a lot of jobs, they tend to have separate, like human resources is considered somewhat of a separate entity, clearly because if they left it up just to management to dictate what's right and wrong at a job, of course, a manager would fucking probably run roughshod and do whatever the fuck they could, whenever they could, That's why you have human resources to tell you, yo, you don't want to fire this person because you doing this could cause, some type of issue with the law or some type of issue with the business that's not right. Justice Department works the same way. Is that it's supposed to check the government when the government's supposed to try to run crazy and do something that is not cool. But he don't want that. He needs his Justice Department to be his arm. He's trying to establish. I hate to say this because people really hate the comparison, but it is a Hitler-esque, like Gestapo type desire that he has, to where he can just met out, like when the Justice Department acts on certain things. It's like the way that he does with the immigration thing, the way he sent ICE out and things like that. He wants that weird control that
he's not interested in a democracy. I've said it before. He feels like as president, he is the king and can do as he pleases and get away with anything. And I'm sure in his business capacities, that has largely been true. We talked about him not caring about certain established American ideas like free press. Here's another couple he doesn't care about. Checks and balances and divisions of power. I mean, very fundamental American ideas that he just runs a roughshod over whenever he pleases. Or to the extent that he can at the moment, he just does whatever the fuck he wants. Them trying to get information on the investigation, and even that isn't bipartisan, because I don't think, is it that was the issue? Because I know there was like something that the Democrats were not invited to.
Yeah, no, there was a hearing recently that was being done about the Russia investigation. I forget exactly what it was. I have to look that up. But part of it was, they only wanted to be Republicans only hearing this issue and making a decision. And the Democrats were like, well, no, because now you guys have already shown that you're pretty much running a lead with this guy. And so we need to have somebody, an opposing voice. Even if we do agree, at least let us sit in and see what we're agreeing to.
Sure. Again, This is a guy who doesn't care about fundamental ideas of a democracy. I want my team to have as much advantage as possible, and anybody who opposes me to be as disadvantaged as humanly possible. And I don't know how other people feel about this. I guess I can ask you, do you feel like any sense of sympathy toward people within organizations like the FBI when they get attacked like this?
Being an adult now, yes. If you were to talk to me maybe 20 years ago and I had that rational fuck the police, even though I don't think I had a serious hate, like that, the way people do. But you could probably get me to lean towards like more quote unquote radical thinking and not actually sit back and analyze things and break them down. It's like maybe then, but now it's not.
Because
I mean, they have their issues. They've always had their issues. There've been things that have been done by the FBI. There's been things that have been done by the FBI towards Black people in particular that, yeah, is not cool historically speaking. That being said, I can't continually hold that as the way that I look at law enforcement. I mean, there's a lot that still goes on in law enforcement that I have issues with, but I've since grown to know that it's not necessarily the institution itself, then it's more the people within it.
Yeah, I ask because I always have a little difficulty understanding people's viewpoints of that kind of stuff. Because, like I said, in general, in this country, we distrust institutions maybe more than they deserve, and historically speaking, some of them have done some fucked up things. You mentioned some racist stuff those types of organizations have done. I'll see people point that out, but sometimes they're talking about stuff that happened in like the 60s or 70s. It's like sometimes they're referring to things that happened at a time where the society was far more racist as a whole, which does not seem innately fair. Because, I mean, yeah, society, everybody at that time was far more racist. So it's not surprising to me that the law institutions were also more racist too. Not that I'm excusing it, I'm just saying I do think the context matters a bit. At least I wonder, in a country where we don't trust institutions, how much sympathy the people in those institutions get. Because I must imagine it must be quite difficult when you have the president of the United States animating the public against your entire existence.
Yeah, no, and I understand, like, with the recent history that we've seen, like the basketball player just recently who got tased and handcuffed for pulling up in the parking lot to go to Walgreens to buy something. Stuff like that. I get it. Police suck. The things that we've seen them do where they harassed a young man who had a white girlfriend in his driveway. And handcuffed him, trying to say, like, well, we need to investigate you because you had a broken tail light. And now you're resisting arrest, even though he was in his own driveway when they notified him he had a broken tail light, so he wasn't driving.
But I mean, even on that note, I do think it's fair to differentiate between regular police and like the FBI and CIA and shit. Like, they're not the same thing.
Yeah, I know, but they also get lumped up. And again, when you look at past history of FBI, when they talk about how J. Edgar Hoover went after certain Black people, Black groups, the investigations that they held, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I'm making the differentiation now because I do want to bring it up as part of the football thing as well. So I guess I can just make the differentiation now. So, too many people in this country conflate regular law enforcement like police with the FBI, with the CIA, and even beyond that, they conflate it with the military too. And these are different sets of organizations with different purposes that behave differently and have different standards. Like, it's not. It makes for odd problems because when you have people. Because you're right, not sometimes, too often, there's some racially dubious things by the police. But then people will extrapolate and think that maybe the FBI is just as bad, and I'm sure at one point they were. But I do think it's fair to say that the FBI nowadays probably has a higher standard than the police do. And even the police in every place is not the same necessarily. So I do think it's worth separating one's ire toward like regular police and the FBI and the the intelligence agencies essentially, and separating both of them away from the fucking military, which I will jump more into when we get that NFL thing. I don't know if there was other shit. I should have had like a list in front of me.
I'm sure there's other shit. That's the problem. There's always other shit.
Oh, I'm sure everything else is good. I mean, there's some of the Me Too stuff going on, which is interesting. I don't have any strong thoughts on it yet. I was surprised when I saw Morgan Freeman's face come up. I'll just say that.
Oh, Morgan Freeman, yeah. He's added himself to the list of like dudes who just fucking. Poor Morgan Freeman. You have such a great voice and you used it for evil. What's wrong with you, sir?
Oh man, I don't want to touch it yet because like I've seen a little bit of it and I'm just a little confused by that situation. So
Morgan Freeman thing. I mean, it's just basically women accusing him of sexually harassing him, in particular on sets and things like that. It's starting to come to fruition. He's apologized if he felt like he seemed to make any woman felt like
oh sure
they were bad and all that they felt bad or he did something wrong. It's just one of those situations where it's like, dude,
So I'm aware of the accusations. I just haven't seen enough to really think about how valid I find them to be or not to be. Because I'm certainly not gonna like dismiss them. Because I've seen people dismiss what those women said out of hand, which I think it's a little unfair. But I do at least think that at least one or two things a couple of them said might have been a bit much of a stretch. But I'm not strong leaning at the moment, so just pointing out there that Morgan Freeman's face is the latest face.
And he probably, I could see him doing it in his voice, which would make it feel like horrible and funny at the same time. Because they show videos of him saying some stupid shit on camera and all that, so it's like. Ain't helping yourself by having those views back in the like something he said about you need to make women chase you. The way he framed it sounded kind of bad.
I mean, so that shit was definitely creepy. I'm just
right, and that's the thing. It's
sure like, where the line between like creepy and like you need to be. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you've got this creepy shit out here. Sir, you're not helping yourself.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want. I don't want to jump on that too much. I'm not ready to deal with these problems. It's too much for me. What is this?
I know. We're losing another national treasure, people. God damn it.
Unless you want to defend him.
To be an asshole. No, I mean, I'm not defending that shit. Because if it's like my whole stance would be, I guess, if there's a quote unquote defense, would it be? I'm not going to like totally like bash him, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and be like he didn't have the capacity to do it. Because as I say about everybody, we all have the capacity to do something that people may think we never would do.
Sure.
It's just a matter of not doing that shit. So please, Morgan Freeman, don't be out here doing that shit. Especially with Harvey Weinstein turning himself in today. You don't need to be sitting beside that man.
I mean, I guess the issue for me was that there was multiple accusations and they weren't all like the same. So a couple of them that I'd heard were kind of rough, I'd be like, yeah, you should probably get in some trouble for that shit.
Yeah.
A couple other ones were like, I feel like you're reaching. You probably could have just went with the other shit and been fine.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no.
It makes me uncomfortable because I remember one of them said, like, they showed some clip and I was like, that wasn't that rough, which makes me feel like uncomfortable because I feel like somebody heard me say that. They think, well, people are hearing me say that, but I feel like some people would be inclined to think that I'm just dismissing these women and what they went through, or I don't know, not caring about what they said or not taking it seriously, or even really siding with and defending him, which I'm not. I'm just inclined to analyze things on a case-by-case basis, and there were numerous cases with it. So,
yeah, and that's when it's like you could be like, well, maybe it wasn't as bad sometimes, and then all of a sudden they have this pile of like stuff. Like it's like, well, I guess it wasn't that bad because, good Lord, sir. Yeah,
weird shit. That was the only thing I could think of that like really captured my attention.
I will say some of the memes were kind of funny though. So, like the one where he calling Bill Cosby, asking him why did he decide to snitch, and Bill Cosby replies, "If I go down, we all go down." Or the one where they take this shot of him as Jesus from Bruce Almighty. It's like, damn, even Jesus ain't safe no more.
I mean, Jesus wasn't that great in the first place. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
At least he ain't had this like time's up shit on him. His resume. Come on, you gotta give him that.
Fair enough. I can give him that, I guess. And thus, until I reach that part of
whatever you have to say about him, you can't knock him for the time's up.
I don't know. I would say that's true until somebody like points out some random Bible verse.
You know, if you find some like fucking scripture or like point out something that could be interpreted like God or Jesus was a rape, oh my God, that would be the worst. That would break the universe right there.
True enough. You know what? I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, because you're going to hell and you're taking me with you, and I don't want to go.
You know, you're right. I'm going to hell anyway. Did Mary ask for it?
Could you stop? Anyway, the NFL. Damn it! You've dragging me down to the depths.
Asking if Mary's conception was consensual. That's all I'm asking. Because I can't remember if she like said I want a God baby or not. That's all. I'm just asking.
Send all opinions to
is Jesus a rape baby or not?
Send all opinions to Cardiacsumo at Cardiacsumo on Twitter right now.
No, send me answers. I want an answer to that question because I really don't remember whether she asked for that or not.
Fake news, sir. Fake news. Leave it alone.
But I'm afraid to Google did God rape Mary because I feel like that's a really special.
I wish he was like on right now because it'll be like, Alexa, record this tomfoolery. Send it to the FBI. So Trump's tweet can admonish him.
And for anybody's religious sensibility that I'm offending, I'm just asking about the Bible. Because I genuinely don't remember how that situation went down.
The Pope will admonish you, sir.
At least.
Oh no, the Pope might absolve you. At least you have that. Pope might absolve you.
Thank you, Holy Father.
And he's like, you're human. You're who you are. I hate your disgusting guts right now, but I love you, sir. I won't wish nothing happened to you.
I will
I'll
let
pray
it go
for your
now.
soul and just leave it at that. That's what probably the Pope will say.
I will let it go. I will let go of my question of consensualness in the Bible go for now. Although there's rape in the Bible. I'm just saying. That did happen.
All right. Okay, let's not go down this rabbit hole right now. Good Lord.
It is in there.
We know there's rape in the Catholic Church. We don't have to talk about rape in the Bible.
I mean,
because I don't need you to give a justification for all these Cardinals boys. Like, there's rape in the Bible. Somebody will try that shit. I swear to God. But somebody will try to use that as a justification for their actions. I don't need
Maybe
that.
it.
No. Why didn't my computer stay off now? I've come back to hell.
I can think of at least one example of actual
So
rape
NFL owners decided to
and attempted rape.
NFL owners decided. Speaking of people who like to rape
In the Bible.
Oh my god! Trying to segue, and it was going to be a horrible segue, but he's making it more awful. So I can't use a horrible football segue.
I'm good now. I just wanted to. I had to add in the Bible part because I don't want people to think something crazy about my personal life.
Well, no, because the segue is supposed to be with the NFL. There are NFL players who rape women.
No, fuck. Dark.
So you just made it even worse. Because I was trying to get off the religious thing, but you just want to like keep pulling us back into the worst part of it. At least I'm trying to get us out, even though mine's is just as bad, if not worse. Well, no, it's not worse. You're horrible. Horrible human being. You are a horrible man.
Sorry.
God damn it. Anyway, so the NFL owners allegedly came together and voted that there should be a rule where players are no longer allowed to kneel on the field. And if you kneel on the field, your team will be penalized and fined for your actions, and you will be as well. So they've given them the quote-unquote choice. If you want to protest, stay in the locker room so you're not disrespecting the flag on the field or disrespecting the military on the field. Come to find out that not all the owners actually voted on this. There wasn't a real vote. It was a more like, I guess, a memorandum where a couple of them said, yeah, I agree with that. And then the NFL was like, well, if you guys agree, we'll go with it. Where even though there was owners who abstained and owners who disagreed on this matter during the discussion about this.
But wait, I'm confused because
this
was presented to me. This was a unanimous vote.
Nope.
The way I read it.
No. They didn't even have a full official vote. They just like ratified it with like a few people's approval. Again, there were people who abstained from even involving themselves in this because they did not feel that they want to wade into these waters. And there are a couple of owners who have openly been saying that, no, I didn't vote on this. In fact, there's one owner, the owner of the New York Jets, who openly, publicly said, look, my players can kneel if they want. I'll pay the fines for them. I don't give a fuck. So clearly this isn't a unanimous decision. There was even one owner who I think they said he kind of abstained, and he said part of it wasn't that he wasn't trying to just wade into it, but he made a point like, if you're going to do this to these players and try to call them being disrespectful, then you need to not sell concessions. You need to not allow people to like leave their seats and stand for. Basically, he was like, you can't be making money during the anthem. You can't be having people like go all about and walk during the anthem. If this is really about the respect of the military and the flag, shouldn't this apply to everybody in the building at the time? So yeah, no, they're not in agreement. They're not like unified or anything like that. So now it's starting to become like a big fiasco, which may lead to this being overturned at some point, possibly.
It sounds like it may as well be as confused as I am. Because like I said, when I read it, it was described. I remember the specific word unanimous coming up.
Yeah, no, the NFL commissioner came up and was like, yep, we agree to this. Sure, we agree to this. And it's like now, it's like, no, this wasn't a wholesale lock and step maneuver. So,
well, that is those waters have been muddied quite a bit there.
Yeah, it's really, really weird.
Now, I guess my confusion is just with the way the process and the personnel there works. Because they don't even, based on your description, it seems like they don't even really understand what the fuck is going on here.
And okay, just for some background, there's a general process where during owners' meetings, they have to have a majority vote, and it has to be everybody, or at least a large majority of the owners voting. Even if it's just to abstain, you have to. The way the NFL does when it comes to rules and regulations, they want a unified like picture, even if it's not a total 100% of voting. You need to get something like, I forget the number because it's something really high, but it has to be a vast majority. Like out of 32 owners, they have to get like 55% or at least something crazy like that. They can't just do anything where like, well, if 32 owners vote and 17 out of 16 pick it, I don't think it'll be ratified. I have to look that up again, but yeah. In any case, they prefer like large majorities. They don't like it's like you could tell from things that have been voted on in the past. They hate like having close calls or having like stuff issue. It has to be a very large majority. And in this case, it's speculation now. Is this the way it was? Because it's very confusing. In any event, now you have to deal with the question of how should the players react? What do you think should go down? And what is your whole thought on the rule as it stands, whether it's real or not?
I just wonder if we have enough prisons for all these fucking football players to be put in. I hope so. I mean, fuck. There's just so much to this entire issue. And I guess the first thing I would start with is the vice president tweeting out #winning with a picture of one of the headlines of this story that said, the football players can't kneel anymore. #winning, which is very adult and how a vice president of the country should act. That's how you unify the country, right?
Always.
Fucking phenomenal. Outside of that, one of the things that has bothered me about this debate in general, and I will tighten my scope down to this particular thing in a second, but this debate in general is that people, by people I mean largely the president and then other people, as a result of that, have been conflating the idea of these protests with disrespect for the military in particular, or disrespect for the country as a whole. But usually they're complaining about disrespect for the military. They'll say, the military fought for you, they protect you, they deserve respect. You're essentially spitting in their face when you don't stand for the anthem. Even though a lot of these people, I think Kaepernick was the main dude starting this shit. I'm pretty sure even he has directly just said it has nothing to do with the military they're protesting.
That was the first thing that came out of his mouth. In fact, the military argument is weird because if you go back and look over the history of the thing, the military argument came after they asked him what did he do and why did he do it. And he completely said that this was just in protest of, the things that were going on, like the police brutality and the inequality that's happening to Black people in the United States. He openly said that the first time this happened, and they asked him the question. And how the narrative jumped from that to the military is just ridiculous, because it's just like basically, and I guess this goes to the Trump effect, it's the idea of, I'm not listening to what you say. I'm just going to make up what I think happened, and we're going to go with that story and push it till everybody agrees with my narrative and doesn't pay attention to what you actually have said and have been saying and continually say.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was making. So I said the frustrating thing about watching that conversation is that it's not a conversation at all. It's the common term for that technique in argument is called a straw man argument, where you essentially prop up this like fake argument. So say you and I are having a discussion about who's the best musician, and then I just suddenly accuse you of saying the best is Justin Bieber, even though you never said anything like that. I'm misrepresenting your argument in a way that looks terrible.
So misrepresenting me with that one.
Yes. Well, I'm taking whatever, not necessarily what you say, but I'm describing an argument that I'm attributing to you as coming from you. And it's a terrible argument, but because I'm attributing it to you and then tearing it down, it makes it look like I'm actually arguing with you and perhaps even winning because, again, the argument that I've created, the fake argument that supposedly comes from you, is a dumb one and I can tear it down, which is what these people do all the time with that stuff. You saw it more generally with like the Black Lives Matter thing where they would say Black Lives Matter, which essentially meant also matter. And then you saw these people saying, it's not only Black lives that matter. And then you saw the Black Lives Matter camp keep saying, we know that's not what we said. And so on, back and forth, because the issue is the people in opposition to these protests are not actually arguing with what the protesters are saying, which is part of the reason these debates, these arguments really keep going on, is because they're never resolved, because they're never actually had out. They just keep saying over and over, you hate the troops, you're disrespecting the troops, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't matter how many times you say out loud and explicitly, no, I'm not, this has nothing to do with them. They're not even acknowledging that that argument is, that response ever happened. So when I look at like comment sections on say YouTube or Facebook or whatever, I'll see that discussion happen all the time where they'll say, you hate the troops. Somebody will say, no, we don't. And then it's like they never said it, and it just keeps going back and forth as though they can't even hear each other speak or see each other's words in the case of online media. So I find that genuinely extremely frustrating. And the fact that we're still doing it is maddening. I understand it with Trump because he's a psycho and he does it. I mean, just listen to the way he talks about not just this, but everything. He doesn't care about what is real or true at all. Not even a little. Like it is mind-boggling to watch him speak as though reality isn't a thing that exists. So I expect it from him because it's just in line with everything he does on a daily basis. Now, with the rest of the American public, I have to think that just comes from being within a bubble of some sort, because I can only see you really maintaining these ideas if you're not actually talking to the people that you seem to disagree with. I say seem to because I don't think you really disagree about all that much. I think you just keep imagining that the protesters have a certain kind of argument that they don't actually have in practice. Which is why you keep arguing with them, because you don't seem to understand what that is that they are protesting for. And when they tell you, you don't hear it because you're not listening to them and you're not really that interested in hearing them. I think negative ideas about them keep getting tossed around in your bubble, so your perception of them is inherently negative because of the way you're probably used to them being presented. If that is a fair assertion about that. It's the discourse around this is genuinely very confusing to me. I can't make sense of it other than you're just not actually talking to these people you think you disagree with.
No, there's no conversation. You can't tell me that there is, because it starts off with you genuinely ignoring everything that has been said off the bat. It's like, again, going back to the Kaepernick thing. He said what he said, and the narrative just went to the whole disrespect the flag. It's like people have been constantly discussions, think pieces, people on TV, military people saying that's not what they said and that's not what they're doing. And it's like everybody has dismissed them. Huh?
I want to put a quick pin in that. Just a lot of times, like, black people get accused of all thinking the same way. And I just noticed when you said, military people come out and defend them. The military does too, because I've heard people say, oh, you don't think it's disrespectful to the military? Why don't you ask them? But some of them do agree. They're not like all the same. They're people and they have like a wider array of opinions, right? So
Right.
I just wanted to put a quick pin in what you had said there to point that out. That
No, I'm not saying like the entirety of the. I'm not saying it's like military edit that disrespecting the flag by not kneeling is wrong. Although technically speaking, military edit does say that if you actually go and get the book about the flag and how to properly represent it, kneeling is not something that's disrespectful. Although what's disrespectful is using the flag as, in another way, such as like another item, a garment, things like flag shirts.
no, sure. I was just putting out that, a lot of these people who argue against the protesters, they tend to use the military as political tools and say, you could say it doesn't disrespect the military, but how do you think they feel? And when they say that, they're making an assumption about how the military feels as a whole. Yeah. And I'm just pointing out that, to your point, they don't all feel the same way about that issue. Some of them are probably annoyed by it, but a lot of them do stand with the kneelers, I guess, as far as valuing the freedom more. So I just want to give the military some credit and treat them as people, because I made that weird little parallel there that with black people, a lot of times a lot of people assume that we all think the same thing.
Yeah.
As though we're not like people with a variety of opinions. And I think the military gets treated the same way sometimes. People will just use them and say, this is upsetting the military. Well, why don't you ask the fucking military? Because they're made of people. They have individualistic opinions too. But, go out. That was just a quick aside.
It's just it's one of those other things where we have gotten to the point where, and I've said this a lot, especially in social media, we never want to hear any opinion that's against our own. We just want to hear you agree with what we say. You're not trying to have a conversation. You're not trying to have a discussion. You're not trying to come to a consensus. Like most people that I've seen or known who do YouTube and other social media things, they do this because they like to be agreed with. And they like that attention. They like the attention, and they like the idea that I have someone who backs my opinion. And this is one of those situations where the people who like to dismiss people with rude, like ignorant comments, that's all they want. They just want you to like agree with it. They don't want any other viewpoint seen or heard. And it's troubling that is something that, and it's not just on this side, the side of the people who hate the protests. It's on both sides. Because do I think all of the owners who went into this are being quote unquote racist and all of that? I think a lot of them are trying to protect money. I do think that they're like not listening socially in the interest of protecting their bottom line, and therefore they're not racist, but they're kind of, I don't know what if you want to call it, bigotrous or just ignorant of what's going on and not paying attention to things. But
so is that, I guess this is a question about their demographic. Like, what makes up their core demographic of fans?
I thought you were going to ask what makes up the core demographic of owners, and that's part of the problem as to why they're going to always have that negative imagery in this situation.
No, I know they're all a bunch of white dudes.
Yeah,
that's obvious. What I meant was, so if a large enough portion of their fans are the type of people who are getting all pissy about this kneeling thing, then, because you said they're not listening socially, I don't know if I agree. Because if enough of their fans are pissed off about it, then maybe they are listening socially. Maybe it's just the fact that a significant, too much of their fan base is the type of people who in their social realm are the angry side.
Well, I can't say that they're listening because for me, at least in my opinion, when I say you're listening socially, you're not just listening to one side of the coin. You have to hear both if you were truly listening, in my opinion.
I mean, but could they not be hearing both and still choosing the one based on, their bottom line? I guess my question about the demographic is, do you know?
And again, I have to find it hard to believe because the general narrative is they're just disrespecting the flag. It's not even ever, I hear what you're saying. It's just totally, you're just disrespecting the flag. It's the dismissal of what actually is what the conversation is.
Is that what the owners are saying?
Some of the owners have been that way, where they said they felt like it's disrespecting the flag. Some of the owners are, of course, again, like I said, they're kind of tiptoeing because they understand, like, it's the profit thing. It's like, I don't want to say anything, even if I feel bad, because if this is going to cost me money, I need to get rid of it. It's just like they were last year when they were doing the whole protest thing. You had some owners who were like, well, we'll just lock hands together. That'll be the concession, because they didn't want to have the imagery of them kneeling. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So we'll lock hands together one game, and that'll be it. And that should satisfy you, and that should satisfy everybody else. That it's like, hey, we understand. It was like that kind of them trying to say, we get it, but it's like it was that when we hear you, we just don't want to do anything type thing. It was very weird because if you look at some of the things, it was just like, yeah, we're just holding hands. We just, it's just like the football player Ray Lewis when he said he was kneeling on the field with the players when they were at a game. I forget where they were. His whole thing was, I wasn't kneeling in protest. I was just praying to get us through this moment. And it's like, okay, thank you. Everybody was trying to make sure they could do it so they could frame it where I'm not disrespecting the troops, but I understand your side too. And it was just
I get wanting to put yourself in the most defensible position possible.
Yeah. And that was it. It was like, no. And that's part of what I have issue with this is that it's a solution that puts them in the best light that they could possibly get in, with who they think they owe the most to, in my opinion, and which I think it's the Trump side, because I guess they feel like a lot of people feel like that watch more football than a lot of people who want social change.
Sure. I do want to take a second. I think it's important for me to say that everything that I'm saying now and will say about this issue has nothing to do with whether I think what they're protesting for is legitimate or not. I feel the need to say that because I'm Black, essentially. So I think it might be assumed that I ride with Kaepernick and the people kneeling and maybe Black Lives Matter in general and stuff. That's not really relevant. As a matter of fact, I've never said that I do. I'm not saying I don't. I'm saying I don't think my opinion is strong enough that I would throw my hands up in celebration of them doing that. I think the situation is fairly complicated, and I haven't parsed it well enough to take a serious stance on that. But I just wanted to point out that everything that I'm criticizing here has nothing to do with my personal opinion about whether the people kneeling are correct or not. It's completely divorced from that issue. If somebody wanted to ask me whether what they're kneeling for is correct, I think that's a longer discussion for another time. But all the criticisms I am lodging now have nothing to do with my personal stance on those issues.
But quickly, do you think they're right for what they're doing? You don't have to get. You don't have to explain in detail. I'm just curious.
For kneeling?
Yeah.
When you say a riot, do I think that there's an issue with police brutality against Black people?
Because that's the main. That's what they said they are doing it for. That's the whole main crux of this whole issue. That's the thing. These are people who are saying that like we're not doing this to be disrespectful or anything. They again, the conversation didn't start off with that even being a thought. But it was about, having seen things like the Philandro Castro stuff and all the other issues. Kaepernick was like, I need to do something to make people aware that we're frustrated. There's an issue going on and people need to address it. That was the bottom line of it.
Yeah, I think that's valid enough. I think there is obvious frustration. I think it at least needs to be talked about. I think the reason I say I wasn't taking like a strong stance on this is because I think the idea that there is racism in the police force and how much of a problem it is more complicated than people like to make it on both sides of that. So you have people who they'll point out, the police are harming more Black people. Yeah, one of the common counter arguments to that as well, Black people are more, what is the word? Involved in more crimes or whatever, I guess, essentially is their argument, which is not factually untrue, but it's an oversimplification because then you can say, well, Black people tend to live in more high crime regions because of, certain historical factors that put them in certain economic situations. And then it's just like this back and forth. And I think the cause and effect as far as the relationship between Black people and police brutality is more complicated than most people paint it out to be. I do think there is an issue. I just don't know how strong it is.
See, I found it funny that that's the argument you made because, again, I think that kind of does what people who kind of go to the you're disrespecting the military thing points to. Is like he never said that he was saying all Black people get harassed and that this is only about Black people. He was just saying that, he's protesting in the way that his people are treated. He never dismissed anybody else, but it's like this is where stuff like this goes a little too far in my mind. It's like everybody takes what he says and expands it to what they think he means by it.
I don't mean
instead of asking him, what exactly do you mean? Because this is the thing. He's had this conversation, but it's never been on the like grand stage or when after this thing. It's like after the media got this, there was no real discussions with Colin Kaepernick until after the whole like he's kicked out of the NFL and things like that. And he's like honestly, I don't even think then I cannot recall a real sit down open discussion by anybody who's like, yo, tell me exactly what you mean by this.
Sure.
And if it has happened, it's been totally washed away because this has become more of a this against us against them as far as the military and the flag thing. I feel, and that's the problem that I have the most with this, is that his core point is just completely fucking like, I won't say it's vanished, but it's been misconstrued and just, thrown into proportions and directions that it shouldn't have been. That the core problem is still not being addressed, or at least finding out what his issue was that sparked this. That's still not been addressed.
So, I guess when I was thinking about the kneeling, I was thinking about everyone doing it in general, not him in particular. But do you feel like I've mischaracterized the purpose of them kneeling in general?
I think partially, and again, I think it's not your fault because the way this conversation has gotten to a point where I would even say I don't know anymore what this is originally about because it's been so muddled with so many different takes. It's like, it was about inequality. It wasn't necessarily about, if I remember him correctly, it was about inequality. He said there's a lot of inequality in this nation, and we need to have a conversation and address this. That was pretty much the focal of his point. And he was just like doing he said he was kneeling in solid protest. It was, the inequality that goes on in society. I'm assuming that his lean has probably been mainly from a Black perspective, because being like, African American, I can understand that. But instead, people, in all the tangents that I think people could have took it, I think they really took it into the worst tangent, because I think what it should have been was like, you know what, he's right. There's a lot of inequality. So let's talk about equality. We could talk about it from the Black perspective. We could talk about it from or better yet, ask the man, what is your perspective and where do you want this discussion to go? So we can get the conversation rolling in the right direction. But it seems like even whether you ask him or not, there's a positive direction that this could have been taken to lead to that discussion that nobody seemed to want to take. And that's the thing. It's just totally been derailed and has been categorized into what we all want it to be. And we still haven't gotten to the whole core essence of the thing, which is like, there's a lot wrong with this country, and we need to figure out how to make things better so everybody can be treated fairly equal and so on. And I just feel like, the whole Trump attack the one thing to make you not have to talk about this, fits with the way we're going, because nobody's having that conversation at all. It's like, even with all of this, the conversation is being happen like us doing it on this podcast in sections. People like making their statements on TV, but it's like there still really isn't no real conversation among the masses about this.
Sure. I would be interested if he was able to sit down in a longer form to see them, because I guess my thought on why the kneeling in general happens has been built largely by, I guess, other people talking about it. And I guess in part the fact that it was happening during a high point for the Black Lives Matter movement because of the police brutality issue. So it could be that it just got swept up with the other stuff that was happening at the time when he did that, which then, caused a bunch of other people to write in that vein. I can acknowledge that perhaps I don't have a full understanding of what their point is, because really I'm not speaking about him in particular. I'm thinking about the kneeling in general as a whole thing, because there are, as I understand it, several individuals that do this, numerous individuals that do this. Yeah. So
it was mainly in agreement with what he said. That's why they were like, they agree we should do this.
Sure.
They didn't necessarily say anything beyond that. That's why I say that's the thing I find weird, because it's like once more people started doing it, I feel like that's when the whole military thing started to come to fruition.
Fair enough. I do still think it was worth bringing up the police brutality aspect, because I do think that is what most people think about in relation to this. Mm-hmm. I can acknowledge that perhaps that's not correct now that I'm thinking more about it based on what you just said. But it's still worth talking about it. But I guess my original point was that I'm not. Now, I guess it stands even more now that I'm not necessarily siding with him, because it was originally that when I thought it was mostly about the police brutality issue that I find it fairly complicated, and I haven't been able to wrap my head quite around it as much as I'd like. But I think the point still stands, except now the reason is that I just don't know what he was doing it for. So either way, the things that I am criticizing are not being criticized because I have some particular loyalty to Kaepernick in particular, or anybody else who's kneeling, or any extreme sympathy for whatever ideas they're espousing. Because as Black so painfully pointed out to me, perhaps I don't know what they are.
I think none of us truly know. I mean, like, if you want to take the police brutality thing, yeah, there's an issue with the way police treat Black people. I won't say that. Then again, I always make the point that I know that this is not something that's done by every police person, and it's not necessarily a just like national creed for the police. I do think there is something socially wrong within the structure of police that makes them think like this. But you know, I can't blanket and say every cop I see does this and all of that. You know what I mean? So I think I can see like from if you took it from that perspective, I could see why you would have issues with that because it's like you can't just. I think we had this conversation before. Like it's one of those situations where are we really going to like lump every part of law enforcement into this mentality?
I guess that's not even my issue there. It's just when you try to study the cause and effect that happens there, it gets very complicated very fast. Because, you can easily say that while Black people are probably more likely to be involved in some type of crime or whatever, is that because there's an effective racism there? It is almost definitely because of some historical economic issues. You have more Black people that don't make enough money and exist in certain kind of cultures. When you start digging into that network of issues, I think you lose the plot pretty fast, which is really my point. Because when you have people who, and we can even step away from the football thing for a second, just the general talk about race in this country, if you're siding more with the idea that Black people are being oppressed in general, they tend to kind of cherry pick out certain points. The systemic racism, you have Black people who have been oppressed for a long time, and that has certain effects, which is true. But then they'll just kind of ignore other things. And the same thing on the other side. They don't take the full picture together. They just kind of take whichever side of it is convenient to them and their viewpoint. But when you do take that full picture, it becomes a tangled web of what the fuck. That becomes very difficult to unweave. So I do think that there is an issue with race in this country. I just think it gets oversimplified to the point where maybe you're having a hard time really defining what the problem is. Because too many people are inclined to either say there's no racism in this country, which I think is stupid. But how many other people are too inclined to just say it's all racism, which I don't think that's the only factor causing these problems. I think there's other factors at play there. But that's just my thought in general. I'd have to dig deeper into that stuff, but on the surface level, it just looks like too much of a clusterfuck to me to really sink my teeth into, in any objective way, at least.
Well, no, I can totally understand why racism is the main feature because, again, it's the conversation part. It's like a lot of people find it hard to believe that you don't feel that way if you're just willingly going to dismiss actually listening to me. You know what I mean? Like, while I don't think like if you're always 100% racist or anything like that, it's kind of hard to feel like you have any other feeling when you just like with this NFL thing, where you're just totally disacknowledging what we're doing or why we're doing it, and just wants to shut us up so you can save some money. Again, I understand it's your business, you want to protect it and all that, but you're effectively telling your people to just shut up, do your job, and don't worry about how you feel. I think
that's a good way to bring us back more into this particular issue, because that's one of the frustrating things too. I said one of the things that frustrates me is the fact that you have people not listening, by which I meant misrepresenting other people's arguments to make them look bad. Because it's surprisingly easy to make somebody look bad if you misrepresent what they're saying. But the second part of not listening is just the cold dismissal. So I just said that I, at the moment, not taking an extremely strong stance on a lot of that stuff, right? But that's not me just. So let's take it to an extreme example. Let's say that I completely disagree that there's nothing racist, blah blah blah. You know, let's say that I'm far more right leaning as far as that issue goes, right? Would it be appropriate for me to just say, well, it doesn't matter how you feel, fuck you and your feelings, you stupid piece of shit? Like, it doesn't. There's this dismissive, angry, hateful air to a lot of those people, where whether the people protesting are right or wrong about whatever they are protesting about, that doesn't mean that they should not be treated to a bit of charity and kindness and civility, right? It seems like a crazy idea, but there's just so much anger toward them for no great reason. It's like if you have a kid, right, and they come to you in the middle of the night, you know, Daddy, there's like a monster in my closet. Even if you obviously don't think that there's a monster in the closet, it still wouldn't be right for you to say, you fucking idiot, there's no monster in the closet, shut the fuck up and go to bed. Like, you can talk to a child.
You know, or like, stop doing this, just go to sleep. Like, acting like, you know, the annoyance factor thing that a lot of people do when they dismiss things, too. That happens with parents.
Yeah, like, even it's not that you have to agree necessarily, but the fact that you don't agree should not entitle you to being an asshole about it.
Yeah.
Where is the kindness, the civility, the respect? That's what bothered me about the Black Lives Matter thing, when people were saying like all lives matter, because they had that same air about them. They were just being dismissive and rude and essentially treating people like the scum of the earth, while at the same time saying we need to unify and be together. No, you can disagree with this shit all you want, but you don't get to talk like that the way you are talking to other human beings and then call for unity. Fuck you.
Yeah, no, that's why I say I don't think they're all racist. I just think that they're more concerned about their world, or like I said, their businesses, or they just like we tend to do, unfortunately, as people, have this weird reaction to things that are kind of hard to deal with, or that we don't understand, and just blowing it off. Like you said, with the like all lives matter thing, it's just like, do I think Justin Timberlake is racist? No, but his stupidity of doing that all lives matter to people when they talked about Black Lives Matter, it's like, why are you dismissing it? Like, you totally being like a jackass, even though you're probably not a bad person, by saying something like that, because you're not listening to what I'm saying. It's not like we're saying no, that your life don't matter. We're just saying that we're talking about right now the issue that is going on in hand, which is right now a lot of Black people are getting fucked up by people for no real reason. That's all. We just bring it to attention. This is like,
but I mean, even if you don't agree that Black people are getting fucked up in an unusual amount, you know, with any unusual frequency, even if you just don't think that that is true, it is worth acknowledging that people feel like that's true and just addressing it with some civility. Like, you know, if you don't agree with it, fine, maybe you can be persuaded with some numbers or something, but at the moment, just with the stance that you don't agree with it, realizing that it is a painful point for people and just addressing it with like some adult respect and civility should be enough. I certainly disagree with people on certain things, but I didn't like expose them to the depths of my anger and hatred because I didn't agree with them. For example, I'm an atheist, right? I talk to people about religion sometimes, and you guys hear me make jokes and shit every once in a while, but I do acknowledge that religion for a lot of people is a comfort, right? So sometimes somebody will ask me, like, if you don't believe in the soul, how can you get through the day and blah, blah, blah. I don't just call them a bunch of fucking morons or anything like that. I acknowledge that this is I don't want to call it a crutch, a support system for them. And I can describe how you can get through life without that type of support, and that there's other things to support you. Like, I don't have to tear you down to disagree with you. I can just explain the other viewpoint while still having some compassion toward you. I guess that's what I'm looking for with some of these discussions between people. Like, where is the compassion? in any of this, especially because a lot of the people who complain are the ones who say, we are one people, we should be together. Why are you attacking this other group, blah, blah, blah. A lot of them claim they want unity, but they lack any level of compassion when they're talking about things they don't agree with.
Not just things that they don't agree with, things they don't either understand or they have no knowledge about. We do that a lot with those things as well. You know, it's like it's easier to dismiss something that we don't agree with, understand, or have any knowledge because I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know why we do that. Like I try my best not to do that because it's just like, okay, not saying I do this to placate you, but I don't understand everything you tell me about your job. But I'm not going to, because I don't, it would be stupid for me to be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, that nerd shit. Fuck out of here with that. You know? Because just because it's not necessarily something I understand doesn't mean that I have to like blow you know what I mean?
When I talk about, and for you guys that don't know, I'm a software engineer. When I talk about my job, I find that there's usually like two people. There's people like my family essentially would just say, it's all gibberish to me, don't care. And then there's people that will like ask me questions because like they don't understand that. I don't expect them to. It's not like they went to school specifically for that and studied that.
Okay, it's just like when you were telling me about a particular project and I was like trying to figure out what's going on with it because instead of just like being like, I don't understand, so why are you bothering me with this? I at least want to have a gist of what you're talking about, so I don't feel like I can say from my personal perspective, one, I don't feel completely lost and stupid, and two, so I can understand why this is bothering you. You know, so I can get an understand like what it is about this that's bothering you as a person.
No, yeah, that's it. That's what I mean. Like for example, my parents, when I talk about work stuff, it's pretty much like a dismissal kind of thing because they don't understand the field well enough. But I have friends who, like, I'll mention something and they'll actually just ask enough to understand, like you said, the gist essentially. Because sometimes I might just like talk, not realizing that, not everybody went to school for years in computer science or whatever, or has particular experience with certain software. So they'll stop me and be like, why don't you like back up and explain that like you're talking to a not nerd? That's not what they say, but you know what I mean. Like they acknowledge that they don't understand and they try to get enough information to at least understand something.
Which begs the question, did you ever get that one thing to be working? Cause I remember you were having such a fit about that thing that happened.
I'm still working on it. I'm probably gonna work on it on the weekend. And honestly, past this weekend, if I can't get it to work, I'm just gonna give up. To be quite honest, I'm sick of working on it, and I don't feel like I'm making any progress.
That is sad that that's the pain of your business right now.
For you guys that don't know, I'm working on improving some performance on one of our code stuff, and I have actually improved it. It's just that when I do, it tends to make like some other part of it slow down a little bit. So like I can't get this like straight up improvement. It's like it's faster here, but then it's slower there. And then if I fix that, it kind of slows down somewhere else in unacceptable ways. So, and part of the reason it takes so long is just the amount of time it takes for me to run certain experiments to get the statistics I need. Because like I'll run these tests and they take like a long time for me to really figure out like what the performance change was like. But I digress on that. I'll probably shoot myself by Monday. So
please don't do that.
You're right. Tuesday. I don't work on Monday.
Yeah, at least enjoy your weekend, your holiday weekend. So
I mean, I guess really the reason I can't is because I'm just obsessed with this kind of stuff. Like, it's not just that I'm missing a deadline for work. It's more like a pride thing. Like, you're not gonna fucking beat me, you piece of shit code. But at one point, I was there till like 3 a.m. one day, just running shit.
You poor soul. You poor soul.
But yeah, I mean, there's two types of people, right? There's the people who, if it's not in their wheelhouse, they don't give a shit, and then there's people who want to try to understand. And you do that. And like I remember one friend. She's like, you're more of a tech guy, so I feel like you get it a little quicker when I, delve in. I have this one friend. She's not really into that shit per se, but she'll actually stop me and ask me like quite a bit of questions. Like she'll make me go back to the basics of computer science almost, and like kind of build up her knowledge from there. She'll be like, what is this? And then I've actually had a few points where I've actually like drawn pictures to explain stuff, which one is good for me because it forces me to think about these ideas, right? Which in like a more basic way and think, am I really right about what I'm talking about? But it's also good for them because they take the time to actually understand. And it's not like I can give them the knowledge of a software engineer in like a single conversation, but I don't need to. And I think it's the same thing with race stuff. Like maybe you don't understand what they're talking about because you don't live that certain experience, but you don't need to understand like all of it in great detail. You just have to push yourself to understand enough what they're talking about. And then you can disagree if you want, but at least try to understand what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, try to have some comprehension of what is happening, or what they're discussing, what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of these things is not that hard. Like I honestly, like for me personally, I don't think the racial issues are that hard if you are willing to actually just listen. Because you can, in some cases, with certain things, you can kind of relate it. So it's like with your stuff, part of why I can sort of maybe understand, basically, because I have a habit where if I don't completely get it, from what you're saying, I at least try to, if I can't find the right question to ask you, I will at least try to see, well, how does this equate to doing this?
Sure.
And then that gives me an understanding. Because it's just like with the whole, you may not know what it is to be pulled over by the police because you're black, but there's some frustration or some situation where you were made to feel like you being you was a bad thing. You can't totally sympathize, but you can empathize in a slight way. Sure, I'm not going to say, well, just because as a kid you used to get stopped all the time and stared at and treated badly because you had red hair, that's an equivalent. But you can understand how people would feel bad, like when they're just going about their business and people are just bothering them just because of who they are or what they look like.
Sure.
You don't understand the level of frustration, but you at least comprehend what the situation could possibly be like. And then you ask, like, how does it really feel? You can find out like what it is like if you listen or ask.
It's not like you it's not excuse me. It's not like you need to live that experience necessarily. You just need enough. Like you mentioned my profession. I've had conversations with like when I was in college, like medical people. And I just had no idea what the fuck they were talking about. So I just let them down and be like, all right, why don't you explain this to me like I'm your child, or relate it back to something that we heard in like this class, the lower level of medical, like this biology class or something, pull it to my skill level and then use some analogies for me, shit like that. Like, it's not that I need to become a doctor per se to understand what they mean. I can just ask them to put it in a frame that fits better for me. I've actually done that with like psychology and computer science too, but it's certainly doable. And it's not that I need to become a doctor. It's just I need to we can work together to find a way for me to get at what you're trying to get across to me, which I don't think enough people want to try to do.
Yeah.
And I think, again, this probably goes back to that bullshit because, you know, if you say that there's problems with the way Black people are treated, how should I put it? Well, one, it's just the dismissal because they don't agree. But I think they have a different view of that because of just what they see on a daily basis. So I guess you might notice, you know, all these individual cases popping up of police brutality. I'm fairly convinced that what they see on their social media is just different. Because I remember at one point having this conversation with a friend of mine, and he was like sharing this shit on his social media. And it was stuff like, you know, Black people supposedly having desecrated some, I don't know, some military thing or some shit like that, right? Just whatever bad actors there happen to be within the Black Lives Matter movement. And I remember never having seen that type of stuff before. And I just, like, in that moment, I thought, I bet if I was to like scroll down his social media pages based on the kind of stuff he follows and his friends and stuff versus mine, they would look totally different. So I do think that is a factor. I don't know how much of a factor it is, but I do wonder when I look at my own social media stuff, how much it looks like somebody else's. Especially when I looked at Twitter one day and I noticed that like that top trendings thing list, it said it was like top trending for me.
Yeah.
That was special. I didn't even notice it was specialized for me until that like a random day a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, I just thought wrestling and like anime was just really popular. Like, I thought just everybody was into wrestling, anime, and video games. I just, you know, I just thought that's what the whole world was like, dead ass. Like, I just assumed all the stuff that it was picking out for me was just the stuff it picks out for the world.
Is that AI tracking you?
No, it really pissed me off. Because I remember, I think I was watching like a pay-per-view one day, and I was like, man, the whole world is talking about WWE. Like, everything is so over.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because I bet you if I go to my trends, it'll be a lot of like political bullshit.
I get a mix, but it's like, I don't know, I'm dumb. I should have noticed earlier that like it seems weird, but all of a sudden,
like this is the weird stuff. Like I went to the Moments thing, on my list, and I get a little hodgepodge of stuff. So I have Terrell Owens is on the cover of Madden. Okay, weird. Keith Olbermann signs an expanded role with ESPN. There's plenty of talk about whether or not Nicki Minaj is dating Eminem. You heard that, right?
That came up for me too.
Yeah.
In fact, my phone is giving me specialized alerts for news, which I don't recall configuring it to ever do that. It just started doing it one day.
Solo movies in mine.
I noticed that with like my Google News too. Like it's definitely
What the fuck
specialized.
is Drake doing on here? Get the fuck off my shit, Drake.
I see like Dragon Ball Z shit on my. Oh my god! Like
Yeah, a lot of Star Wars shit.
no, but I guess my point is like, as much as we're on social media, I don't think a lot of us think about the fact that it's tailoring itself to us a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So, because I've definitely seen people who are far more harsh on like the Black Lives Matter people, but I think they're just seeing things that one aren't accurate, and they're not seeing like a. I guess none of us are seeing like a truly balanced view of it. So I think that's one problem. I think there's plenty of problems, but I do think that's one that we never really talk about is just this fact that the technology is kind of like wrapping us around in its cold embrace and helping keep us from each other. On this football thing, I saw a lot of people, like the vice president, they talk about this fact that the NFL did that. Like, it's this great American victory. You know, we got these people to stop disrespecting the troops, stop disrespecting the flag. And there's just, a couple things I want to say about that. So I would ask anybody listening to think about this question, I guess. do you love America? And if so, what exactly do you love about it? Because these people who say, they love this country, they hate the way these entitled NFL players are disrespecting the flag and the country. To me, that seems confusing. When they celebrate the fact that the NFL did this as a victory for the country, for the troops, for America, for freedom, blah, 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 blah. I never know what the fuck they mean. I don't know what they mean when they say they love America. Because it seems to me that they love symbols of America, not America. Or I guess I can even take a step back. Like, what do we mean when we say America? Because to some people, it just means this landmass between Canada and Mexico. To some people, it means the troops, I guess, the people in it. I don't know what they think of as America. When I think of America, I think of a group of principles and ideas that we all adhere to, or at least we ought to, historically. The things that we were founded on, notions like we don't want to have an unchecked ruler, like a king, which is what we escaped from Europe, essentially. I say we, the white people. What America, the reason we have our government set up the way it is because we didn't want to have one person with all that power. President has a little too much, but even that we rein in quite a bit as opposed to just having a solitary king or anything like that. General freedoms like freedom to express yourself, freedom of press that we have, all these freedoms that we keep bragging about, yet nobody really thinks about as something to defend. I mean, just general principles that make up America are the things I think about when I say I love America. So when I see these people getting so angry that people are kneeling during the national anthem, or maybe they don't want to pledge allegiance to the flag or whatever the fuck it may be, I always think, who cares? This is America. I mean, this feeling people have that you can't disrespect those things is, to me, un-American, because what it shows me is that you are worshiping symbols. You worship the flag, you worship the anthem, you worship the image of the soldiers. You are treating these symbols like objects of reverence. You're treating patriotism like it's a religion, which is about the most un-American shit you could probably do in a country that is, at least in theory, supposed to be not bound by religion. It's supposed to be a separation, right?
Right.
The
separation of church and state.
I say in theory. I understand that in practice, it's
yeah, I know.
It's not as clean as I personally would like, but we're not supposed to do shit like that. And this feeling you guys have that if you just prostrate yourself before these symbols, if you just lay down and worship in front of them, that you're American just is absolutely silly to me. That's not American at all. It's not American to worship these symbols or to worry about disrespecting the country. That's some shit you worry about in some stupid dictatorship. You don't have to worry about that in America. At least you shouldn't.
No. But it's what we do. And
but I just find it. What was it I said earlier on Facebook that somebody had shared out? Like, forcing people to stand is not American with the flag or whatever. You guys care more about symbols than the actual ideas of America. Which is what I was talking about earlier when I said I don't think people think enough about what those ideas are. They just kind of feel the need to show off how much they love America. That's why you have these people, painting their asses red, white, and blue, essentially, and just shaking it out for the world. They just try to show how star-spangled fucking awesome they are. For them, being patriotic is more of a show than really loving the country. So
I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the biggest problems that I think I have, and I think quote-unquote patriots should have with the NFL. The national anthem, and I've said this before, and I'm going to repeat this again, the national anthem being showed on TV and having them have the players out on the field standing is a joke. It's a sham. It's actually the most one of the most disrespectful things you can do when it comes to the American flag, because it simply is only there because the NFL signed a contract with the Department of Defense to televise the national anthem during their NFL broadcast. That is the only reason we see it, because before, like I said, I don't remember this, but I've been told this is how it was when I was a kid, and I've heard, like, journalism say this after research. They never, at one time, they never really showed it on TV, the national anthem at all. They didn't even show it. But as time progressed, you wouldn't even see the players on the field, even if they did show it. National anthem was never this big television moment that we all had to stand up and acknowledge and things like that. It wasn't there until the government paid the NFL to put it there.
I mean, I'm sure it's true.
No, it is. They've showed the contract. The NFL has acknowledged that themselves.
No, yeah, it's common knowledge that it's a deal with them. It's a financial thing. It's not. It certainly isn't just love of country. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure some of those people do love the country. I hope, at least, whatever.
It was all an advertising scheme to get your kids to join the Army or the Navy or the Air Force or the Marine. That's it.
Sure. I do hope people ask themselves that question, like, what do they love about this country? Because so many people are so angry at the thought of people kneeling in protest. That's like the most American shit you can do. You can do that because of those soldiers who died that you guys keep throwing around like political bonds. You can do that because we don't live in one of these countries where the ruling class can make you do whatever the fuck they want. You're supposed to have these freedoms. Like the NFL, I should say not allowing, but further silencing protest is like the most anti-American thing I can think of within legal parameters, I guess, right? It's to push it any further would just be to push the bounds of legality. And the fact that you guys celebrate that as a victory for America makes me think, what the fuck do you think America is?
Yeah.
The fact that we can choose not to have to celebrate, these objects that represent the country or whatever, is part of being American. that shouldn't bother you. You shouldn't even notice that. That should just skate by past your consciousness. It shouldn't even be a thing that you notice. And I talked about conflation before. Stop conflating the military with fucking everything. The flag and the military are not the same fucking thing. The anthem and the military are not the same fucking thing.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what they do. I don't. And that's why it's a maddening situation to see this go down. And I'm curious to see what the backlash is going to be now that we found out this has not been something that was actually voted on properly and all that. It'll be interesting to see what happens leading up to the beginning of the NFL. I really feel like while this was a knee-jerk reaction to try to appease a certain group so you can save your ratings, I feel like it's just going to fall all apart on another side.
I thought strategically it was stupid as fuck. First of all, this is clearly something that was largely pressured by the President Donald J. Trump. So for them to even do that is essentially them caving into him and his, I don't know what the fuck you want to call whatever's going through his brain. His whatever. You're caving into his pressures in general, which is not good. I mean, it makes you look weak as shit.
Yeah.
And it ignores, I'm sure the large part of your fan base that does celebrate the people kneeling. It was just strategically, as a business move, fucking stupid. I don't know who it was on the news that said this, but essentially their point was what the NFL should have done the second Trump started pushing this was saying, how about you worry about the country and we'll worry about football, mind your business or whatever. They should have just dismissed him essentially and just left it alone. They didn't have to really kneel with the other football motherfuckers. They could have just said, "This is football. Mind your business. We'll handle shit here and whatever." And then it probably would have just blown over. Like it, because as I recall, it wasn't really that big a thing in the news until Trump started doing that shit and pouring like millions of tons of gas on the fire. Otherwise, it was kind of fading out of the news at one point until he did that. So them not standing up to him is part of the reason they're in this mess in the first place, because they refused to put him in his place when they had the chance, and now it's too much of a thing to ignore.
Yeah, and also the NFL or maybe media might be to blame because if it really bothered them to have this done, they didn't have to show the players on camera. Yet they kept focusing in on the players to just like draw attention to it. If you really felt like you didn't need this kind of heat, it would have been fucked up. But at the same time, you didn't have to put them on camera.
I feel like you may as well. I
mean, I do too, but at the same time, it's like if y'all are really that fucking shook, you could have just locked in on the person singing and the military people on the field, which isn't this what this is all supposed to be about anyway?
I mean, sure.
Like, is that what you're getting paid for?
This, I don't even know what to say about that. You threw me off, you asshole. I was gonna say, yeah, the protesting aspect of this. At what point is it gonna be now? Because now you have people saying you can still protest. You just have to do it in the back. How is that protesting if you're just not there and nobody's thinking about you? I'm not saying that the NFL is required to give you the best platform they can so that you can protest and make your points. But I mentioned earlier, we were talking about Trump and like what is legal and what is right. Is what the NFL doing illegal? I guess not. These guys are employees of the NFL, so I guess they can do the shit like that. I'm assuming. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, I was asking Katina earlier, like, what's the contractual ramifications of this? Because it's like, does the national anthem constitute as a part of your work? If you're not really participating, you're just it's a pre-game ritual, as opposed to what you're getting paid for, which is to play football. Yeah. And it's things like that. And plus, to me, it's just a whole, do what we say or go to your room. Now you're treating a bunch of grown men like fucking children.
I mean, what I was about to say is that I think too many people are hiding behind the notion of something being legal so that they don't have to talk about whether it's right or not. Example, when this debate around this issue first started, I remember talking with a friend and he's like, I'm not saying that it's illegal for them to protest. I'm just saying it's stupid or blah, 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 blah. Or that, whatever his point was at the time. I can't remember his exact argument. But his main point is, I'm not saying it's illegal. I'm just saying they shouldn't do it. And now that this is happening, you have those same people saying, well, it's not illegal for them to do this. They're the owners. This is a business. Those are employees. They can do whatever the fuck they want. They keep hiding behind what is legally allowed so that they don't have to address what is morally appropriate. I guess, which is it illegal for them to do this? No, but it spits in the face of in the spirit of America, this constant erosion. Like, you keep pushing them further and further. You had people who protest in the streets sometimes. Well, that's annoying. That's disruptive. They protest in certain areas. That's annoying. That's disruptive. All the way to the point where they don't stand up during the anthem. You're fucking with America. You hate blah, blah, blah. and now you're just pushing them to the back. Like, you keep pushing them. Like, if I say that you're silencing these football players, they'll be like, they're not silenced. They can say whatever they want off the field. They can not show up on the field if they don't want to, which is technically true.
Because what's one of the things that people have said about these athletes, even when they were speaking off the field, like, you know, agreeing with Kaepernick, shut up, you're getting paid. Why are you complaining? You make $1 million, just do your job.
Fair enough. That's my point, is like, if this is the wall of legality over here, all you've been doing is like slowly pushing and pushing and pushing while never really going past that wall. You just keep silencing them, finding ways to silence them more and more and more and more, but never doing it in an illegal way. So you can just keep saying, well, it's not illegal, or we have the right to do this and whatever, which, fine. Yes, it's not illegal. That's why you're not in fucking prison. But, you know, we talk about the spirit of what America is supposed to be, and silencing people just because you don't agree with them is not American. That is the type of shit. That is the type of behavior you should expect in an autocracy somewhere, not in America.
Well, I think we should end it on that note, because now I have a way to like even further frustrate you. I'm so glad you said that, because you're wrong, sir. America is clearly about silencing things, but this just came up that I just saw. So Donald Trump gave a speech at the Naval Academy commencement today in Annapolis. And clearly our purpose was to silence people, because as he said, our ancestors tamed a continent, and we're not going to apologize for America. We tamed this continent, sir. So clearly we could tell you what to do because we tamed it.
I don't believe you.
Sir.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Sir, we bring facts. Sir.
I don't. I mean, Newsweek, that's fake news.
Nah.
You know what? That might be this is one last. I guess it's not necessarily the football thing, but I do think that this brings up another good point in relation to that. This notion about like real Americans. So I would say that I'm more liberal, right? I feel like us liberal people have been letting everybody else, or letting like the more right side of the political spectrum get away with thinking of themselves as real Americans. So I don't want to get too deep into the race issue, but I feel like a lot of, say, white people think of themselves as like what America is. Not even just white in general, just, you know, Trump's kind of people think of themselves as American, and everybody else is like an immigrant or just not quite a part of the American image. And I think we let them get away with that because those are the same people who are, you know, again, constantly wrapping themselves up in the red, white, and blue and making a big show of how patriotic they are. And we don't do that as much. I'm not saying we should do it, but I think we just kept ignoring it when they kept calling themselves real Americans. And I think one of the consequences is shit like what he's able to say is that we let them get away with thinking of themselves as Americans and everybody else is not Americans.
The thing that really bothers me about that is like it's like, okay, you've heard people say like we call them Native Americans because they were the first settlers on this continent. But his whole premise is kind of like, yeah, we kicked the shit out of you in your own country and we took it. So that makes it ours. And sorry if you couldn't fight better, shit. You know?
Sure.
It's us as ours now. And it's that disdain. And again, it's that disdain of ownership. And I know we don't like to try to. I can't not go to the racial thing, but it's that level of ownership that you tend to get with white Americans.
Sure.
That it's like everything's a possession, and again, like you said, it's about the ideology. It's not the actual object or the worst, like the thing that you want to idolize or whatever the object is or whatever you covet. It's the ideology that makes this country what it is and makes it great, and that makes most people, even liberals who hate everything the right wing does. If you were ask them why do they love America, they'll tell you because we have different freedoms and ideologies that can makes this land great, and it could be so much better if we, pretty much adhere to some of those things that not just our forefathers, but what society, demands us to do, to change and to evolve into. But again, going to the right wing, and again, it's a majority white thing. It's like, no, this is our country, our land. You get the fuck off our land. If you don't love our land, you need to go away. If you don't agree with everything that our president says, then you're not American. And it's just like,
that shit always makes it so rough to talk about, like, the political divide is because the races are not evenly distributed amongst the political parties. So, like,
right,
you end up forced to talk about race because it just happens to be the case that on the right, there aren't as many people of color, or, I mean, there are people of color, and
but it's like there's not as many. It's
it's just that's not even close to an even distribution. So you end up forced to address the racial issue.
You look at CNN and like Paris, I forget his last name. He's always the black guy on the Republican side. It's like, can you find any more black Republicans, please?
There's not that many, right? Which there's reasons for it, but it just. Because I sense your hesitance there, and I tend to share it because it becomes quite difficult to decouple the race.
I don't have a problem saying it. I just get tired of having to say it because it's like, could somebody please look at this and realize, like, yo, there's a serious problem. And it's like we were talking about the shooting thing, and we're not going to talk about that on the show. But my condolences to all those people. That's messed up about the shooting, but it's just like somebody sent this meme, like I think I told you about, where they were like, you notice how all these other like different demographics, women, homosexuals, bisexuals, transsexuals, people of color, they get bullied, harassed, treated in different like ways that are very disparaging to each of their group in their own way. Yet you generally don't see any of those people who get that type of treatment committing these shootings. It's generally, sadly, a young white male who's mad at either society or because he doesn't fit in certain social groups. There was speculation that part of this like kid in Texas's motivation was because of his like him wanting a female who didn't want him back, as well as like not being considered cool and all of that. It's just like there's a problem. There's a serious problem. It's like I hate to say it, but yeah, maybe it's something that's wrong with you, white people, because nobody else nobody else acts like that. So it's hard. It's hard, but you have to acknowledge that because there are some things that you can't escape it. Like you look at the patterns, you look at the information, and it's like, well, I mean, you're not making it easy for me to avoid this.
Certainly, yeah. Fuck. Nope, it's difficult, but he didn't say that. Come on. I gotta do this. Like,
there is a video.
our
There actually is
ancestors
a-
tamed a continent. Why do you say things?
Exactly.
Why do you have to talk? Can't you take a vacation? But I mean, yes, the maybe I was going too far by saying we as liberals aren't doing enough there, but I do sense it sometimes. This feeling that a lot of people are getting away with, that they are Americans and everybody else is only kind of American at best.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to combat it, because I don't think the rest. Again, I talk about like patriotism as a show. I don't feel like liberals are as willing to do that. It's just not their thing to paint their dicks red, white, and blue, and fuck the air with American greatness.
We'll grandstand on a lot of things. We don't do not that. It's like, yeah.
Now, the only time I hear more liberal people talking about we're Americans too is like when they want to hoist up, like, say, I don't know, a Muslim woman or something. Like, this is also America, like that's
it's like acknowledge that we're all a part of this country. Instead of like saying I represent what America should be.
Yeah, exactly.
God damn it! I'm sorry. I love you, but white people, get your shit together.
I mean, I guess my point there was just we, on the more liberal side of the things, don't tend to show off our patriotism as much.
Nah.
Which I would argue you don't have to. Because I remember, at the top you said, like, I'm the most patriotic person. I do think that I'm fairly patriotic, even though I don't do a lot of the things my more conservative friends would do. Like, I don't, have sex with the flag on Veterans Day or whatever they do. I'm sorry, that was me. Just like I don't feel the need to show that patriotism so much. Whereas I have friends where it's like half their wardrobe is American flag themed shit, right? And they're in the military too, so definitely got one up on me there. So
I don't think I have anything with a flag on it in here.
I don't have that.
Although this makes me think I need to go and get a Captain America shield or something to hang on my wall.
But the type of people I mean, like they're always dressing with that shit. They're always
there's somebody who walks around the neighborhood every morning. I guess that's what he sleeps in, and this is weird because it's a black guy that he has his red, white, and blue like shirt and shorts on every morning when he walks his dog.
I do generally feel like if you see people like that, they tend to be a little bit more. It's more likely they're conservative. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's just part of the reason they tend to get away with this real America shit, is because they feel the need to shove their patriotism so hard that it's just kind of the way they see America at that point, where it's like, yeah, we're the ones wearing the red, white, and blue and all that shit. Real American.
Yeah. By the way, did you listen to the video?
No, I refuse.
You should.
I don't acknowledge it as a real video.
We trounced an empire, sir. You need to respect what he said. Yeah. Okay. You think I'm lying? You think I'm lying?
You're a liar. I'm sorry. I used to think you would tell me.
I could play this so everybody could hear this. I should just pull out my headphones now, so everyone could hear this shit. Because
I used to think of you as a guy that told the truth.
They also because they even put the video even has subtitles, sir, so you could see it. So you.
How long is it?
It's 12 seconds.
All right, give me a sec. Oh, I hate to unmute it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the short take was better, wasn't it?
What?
The short take was better, wasn't it?
Nope. I need to hear it in context. That's what I need, the full context. First of all, what empire is he talking about?
I guess this is him like sticking it to the Brits. Because I mean, we don't have we need to open those wounds again, of course.
And what great evils was he talking? Oh, okay. I guess like
Native Americans.
I'm hoping he was talking about like World War II type shit.
So Native Americans fits in there though.
I'm just
no. The Native Americans are the tamed. That's who we tamed. So, for the record, to break this down, we subjugated and confined the natives to like designated areas so that we could take their shit. But before we did that, we trounced an empire, which means we kicked the shit out of Britain and told them to go back to their islands. And then we conquered evils, which I will say that may be the only thing that's kind of cool because, yeah, we did fight 2 world wars where we stopped people who were looking to try to take over the world and all of that. So that's the one thing, unless he's trying to, like, knowing him, though, he's probably using that as a metaphor for North Korea or something like that because he's a fucking psycho. So anyway.
Yeah, the pictures they pick in these articles where he's just like,
but now you know how nope. Badass America is.
I refuse. I will find that in the full context later and show that that's.
I mean, really want to read one of his speeches because it's in here.
I want it to be easy. And then you wonder why it's so hard to think of good shit. Really? Like, what was that last thing? We're not going to apologize for America or whatever.
Yeah.
That is the second part of this issue. It's not just that they feel like they are America. It's that they feel like they are America and that's it. No apologies. We're not going to apologize for being American. Fuck you. Bruh. Why are you such a dick about everything? You don't have to be. Plus, it makes us look like shit. And
it does. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh, but I can't help it because it's just so retarded that this is what we like. This is what we're being represented as liking. Like, people are going to think that most of us adhere to these philosophies. It's going back to the whole, like, you know, Cold War era Reaganomics thing where everybody fucking hates America because we're one of the big bullies and it's us against. Oh my god! Holy shit!
It's rhetoric that lends itself to his foreign policy, which is "fuck you, we're America."
Oh my god! Heaven help us. You got 2 more years of this shit, people. So
I need to remind these motherfuckers that we're America too. I guess I don't know. I don't know. It was just a small thing that it's not small, but it bothers the shit out of me. I don't know what to do about it, but it bugs me that they get away with this painting themselves as the Americans.
I don't blame you. All right, we've been doing this for about 4 hours. Let's go ahead and end this nightmare talking about this man. Again, thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed, even though we probably depressed the fuck out of you again. We have to do another happy show soon since we gave you 2 depressing episodes this week.
We're not going to talk about how like Meghan Markle is a spy for the U.S.
No,
are we not supposed to talk about that? Is she still undercover?
She got her own coat of arms today. It was kind of cool.
She is doing a great job infiltrating that place.
She is the greatest. Anyway, no. Anything else to say before we cut these people off mercifully?
We're about to kick Queen Elizabeth in the fucking teeth.
All righty. Don't let the rhetoric hype you, sir.
fuck you or America. I don't know. I guess I would just say that since we were talking about Trump, all of the things that I think make America wonderful are the things that I think he is eroding. The freedoms that we're supposed to respect, the institutions that safeguard them, checks and balances on power, pretty much anything that I would think is a positive in America's favor are the exact type of things he runs a roughshod over, and he drags the rest of his followers along with him. He's pooping on America, and it feels gross.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. So again, thank you. We appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you next time on the Reason Reborn, if we're allowed to be put back on the air, because after they hear this, they probably don't want us here. All right, y'all. Peace.